across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
There you are. Good afternoon and welcome to Drive Time right here on Talk. Let's do it, folks. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan and I'll be your host for 3 thrilling hours of news, views and topical debate all the way to 7 o'clock. Get on the show, get on the phone and call me on 0344 499 1000, or you can WhatsApp voice note me on the same number and I promise to play your message out. It is Tuesday, March the 24th. Here's what's coming up. Pop the champagne. 3 weeks after it was deployed, HMS Dragon has finally arrived in Cyprus. Yay! But don't worry, Britain is not involved in the war, as Turkey keeps assuring us. Sadly, he refuses to assure us that Iran has long-range missiles capable of reaching London. He won't say. Translation: the Iranians do have missiles that are capable of reaching London, and this government hasn't got any means of protecting us. Do you trust this pacifist Labour lot to keep us safe? 0344 499 1000. In other news, 9 days after Bob Villambozo, Pascal Robinson Foster bellowed his favourite chant, "Death, death to the IDF," at the Iran fan rally in central London, the Met Police are still investigating whether or not this is a clear case of Jew hatred. Was it a crime? It was filmed, recorded. What's the problem? Why is this taking so long? 0344 499 1000. Meanwhile, Labour activist masquerading as amateur hour TV presenter Ed Balls effectively asks a Jewish guy on Good Morning Britain if he thinks that because of the criticism of the mass Muslim praying in Trafalgar Square, the anti-Semitic firebomb ambulance attack was the fault of Jews. 0344 499 1000. Meanwhile, Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood fears that anti-Semitism in Britain is getting worse. Geez, Shabs, you don't say. Who knew? 0344 499 1000. Also today, is the nut zero madness of crazy Ed Miliband a danger to this country? Why is Starmer allowing this deranged zealot to keep our North Sea oil and gas fields closed in our hour of need? 0344 499 1000. Plus, the French recoil at the idea that they should be paid for stopping the boats on results. Not surprising, since new stats reveal that les gendarmes have only intercepted 37% of the illegal dinghies heading for Britain's promised land. 0344 499 1000. And finally, the big story of the day: sensational new evidence that the Loch Ness monster does exist. We're going to talk to a guy who's filmed this incredible new footage. Stay tuned for the astonishing details. All that and so much more. So don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Tuesday afternoon together. And without further ado, we've got a lot to get through today. Let's go straight over to former Government Special Advisor James Price. Welcome, James.
Hello, my friend. It's good to be with you. Good
to have you on board, as always. Well, let's talk first about HMS Dragon and Britain's military capabilities generally. Incredibly fantastic. 3 weeks after it was deployed from Portsmouth, HMS Dragon has finally arrived at Cyprus. On the basis, I presume, that our government thought that rather than leaving it to the French Navy, the Greek Navy and the Dutch Navy to protect British citizens on that Mediterranean island, maybe the British Navy should be involved. So it's finally there. It's spent 3 to 4 days messing about in Gibraltar for reasons that no one can quite work out, but it is there. Meanwhile, there is talk that Britain will perhaps help Donald Trump unblock the Strait of Hormuz using our minefielders, I believe, minesweeping vessels. I'll believe that when I see it. I think that's a long way off. And finally, Keir Starmer, talking to the liaison committee yesterday, refused to be drawn on whether or not Iran has missiles that can reach London. So you know what that translates as, don't you? they do have missiles that can reach London. The question is, James, is this the government to protect us in these terrible, turbulent times?
God, can you imagine the idea that in the result of any actual direct threat to the British Isles that Keir Starmer is the knight in shining armour? It's a pretty scary thought, isn't it? I think that we should immediately say that this is no reflection on the people serving on HMS Dragon or any of the or however many of them are actually left after decades of cuts from my Conservative Party as well as the Labour Party, obviously, over far too long. And it's been a long and ignominious history from the end of the Cold War, when we had very large and impressive fighting forces that were not properly armed or equipped by Tony Blair. Let's remember that, in Iraq and Afghanistan, especially I think in Iraq, and have been let down time and time again ever since. So it's no indictment or judgment of any of them or their families or anybody else. But the idea that with America building up the largest forces that we've seen since that Iraq war around Iran, the idea that it might not be at least a little bit prudent to have something there to protect British assets, and not just assets or interests, but sovereign British territory. Let's remember this. The land and the bases and stuff on the island of Cyprus are British. They are every bit as British as Gibraltar or the Falkland Islands or anything else like that. And we should bear that in mind as well. That's how we've been left totally defenseless. And we should just remember that, it was Britannia that ruled the waves. The development of the Royal Navy was the single greatest achievement of British foreign policy for hundreds of years. It ended slavery. It kept this island free against the Armada of the Spanish, against Napoleon, against Hitler, against all comers, helped keep things open during the Cold War. These amazing achievements, and we've been let down, or they have been let down so enormously now by so many generations of politicians who talk a big game and like to drape themselves in the flag. But we have been totally let down and betrayed. And it's going to take an awful lot of money and time and effort to get back to a level where we can defend ourselves, let alone do any good in the world or get involved in the Iran war or anything like that.
What did you make of Ed Miliband today? The Nut Zero secretary was in the Commons in all his deranged glory, still sticking to his story that now is not the time to relax his zealotry on green climate change issues, and we must increasingly turn to wind and solar panels to power this nation, so that we can become independent of fossil fuels and buying energy from foreign countries. I mean, in these times with the Strait of Hormuz, we are about to be hit by a massive oil shortage that will have absolutely crippling effects on the entire world economy, including ours. We need our own power, and if it happens to be fossil fuels, if it happens to be net zero, or rather North Sea oil and gas, then so be it. Frankly, get fracking in these difficult times. But this guy won't allow it. Now is not the time to buckle. No, Ed, this is the time to buckle. This guy's ideology, this ideologue, this mad ideologue, is working directly against the interests of the British people. We need our energy prices to come down. We do not need petrol prices to rocket, which they will unless we divorce ourselves from Ed Miliband's insanity about green claptrap.
Absolutely right. Look, in some ways, it would be lovely if Ed Miliband for once were right, wouldn't it? It'd be a lovely idea to think that Britain could get itself to be completely energy independence, an amazing desire and a strategic aim. I could go along with that. It'd be great if you could do it on renewables that didn't cost anything in terms of air pollution or anything like that. It'd be great if it was sunny enough here and windy enough here and we had the technology here and didn't have to buy them from China and everywhere else in order to do that. It's a great idea. And you know what? There's an argument to be made for moving towards a system that has all of that. The problem is the way that we've been doing it for a long time is to immiserate people with some of the highest domestic costs in the world, some of the highest industrial energy costs in the world, and shutting off all sorts of other sources of fuel to try and force businesses and families to move down this to bring the costs down. Now, it is great, again, that solar is actually coming down in terms of its overall cost and doesn't need subsidies in the future, yada, 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 around the world. It doesn't look too sunny right now, though. And so that's not going to be sufficient. And as you say, Kev, we need that mix to be different. And there's actually a great piece in the Critic magazine, I think in April, written by my friend Chris Bayliss, who points out actually it's also a bit more difficult than that, because you can't just have a load of nuclear baseload and wind and solar, because one is obviously a baseload that you get all the time, one is intermittent, and you'd need to spend a lot of money changing the whole overall grid in order to be able to fit both of those in. So we've actually made things even more complicated for ourselves if we wanted to choose one of these routes. The French obviously have chosen to have a huge amount of nuclear, and as a result, everything is much, much cheaper for them. The Americans chosen to go with abundance through fracking, massively cheaper for their families' bills and for their industry as well. We have chosen the worst of all possible worlds again and again and again, because Ed Miliband is not nearly half as clever as he thinks he is. In fact, pretty clever.
He's not clever. End of. Now, here he is today in the energy debate in the House of Commons.
Be clear with the House. He knows we will need gas for decades to come. Yep. Why does he prefer to import dirtier gas from abroad than use the gas that we have in the North Sea?
I don't, and we continue to use the North Sea, and ours is a pragmatic position. Is the lesson of this crisis a fossil fuels crisis, to double down on fossil fuels, or is it to drive forward with clean energy? We believe clean, homegrown power that we control is the answer.
You know, this Prime Minister of ours, Keir Starmer, he should stop this guy. He should not allow this guy. This guy is propagating lies. He's propagating the lie that if we just stay strong, fairly soon, this country can be powered just by windmills and solar panels. Here is the truth. Everybody knows this. This country will never be powered solely by windmills and solar panels, and yet the Prime Minister allows this lunatic to carry on spewing out this nonsense.
Do you know what? I was watching his clip there, and Claire Coutinho, the Shadow Energy Secretary for the Tories, was having to resort to using that voice you have to do when people are either really drunk or really sleepy or particularly stupid, where she's having to speak slowly to try and hope that she can get something smart into Ed Miliband's brain. And unfortunately, it doesn't seem like it works. And I was trying to work out, is Miliband really just thick? Does he really just believe this stuff that he's got in front of him and is saying it? Or is it that he is this kind of eco-zealot and feels that I'm just going to rough this out, I don't care, I can bring down Starmer if I want to, the only thing I care about is decarbonisation, and in hundreds of years' time people will build statues out of hemp of him because they'll see him as this great kind of eco-pioneer, even if it immiserates people and makes Granny freeze at home in her cottage or whatever it may be. And I honestly can't tell which one is more likely and which one is more evil.
I suspect, James, it's a combination of the two, but you're right. You look at this guy, everybody does, apart from the Prime Minister and the rest of the useless cabinet, like gormless idiots in the cabinet. The rest of the country...
Including, by the way, the whole country who roundly rejected him at the general election 10 years ago.
But the rest of the country look at this guy and they go, what's going on? Why is this guy an important cabinet secretary? He belongs in a padded cell in a straitjacket. And the Prime Minister's got to do something about that, and fast. Let me ask you a couple of questions, off-piste issues. First up, I think that this is really sad. Bob Monkhouse, the legendary comedian, very nice guy, I met him many times. Very funny man as well. Live, a very funny comedian. Now, he famously, you remember his famous joke, they all laughed when I said I was going to be a comedian. They're not laughing now. Was his other joke? His other joke was, my wife is just sex, sex, sex. 55 years of marriage, 3 times we've had sex. But, you know, that kind of thing. So that was his joke. That was the kind of level of his jokes. But he kept this compendium of jokes. It was legendary. Thousands and thousands of them. And they're up in the Monkhouse attic, family attic, and they're in a mess. So the Monkhouse family, his descendants, he's, of course, no longer with us. His wife isn't either. So his family took the joke books, Bob's joke books, to the repair shop, you know, that TV show. Could you make turn these into a nice, respectable binders and folders, which they did. And then someone to do with the production, apparently, complained that some of the jokes were sexist, along the lines of the jokes I've just told you. You know, I mean, he was a creature of his time, and frankly, I don't really care if jokes are sexist. I care whether or not jokes are funny. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is somebody complained and said, oh, Bob Monkhouse told sexist jokes. So this entire episode has now been axed, canned, will never be screened. I think that's unhuman, don't you?
I do. I think that it's this same kind of censorious instinct that we've been suffering under for years and years and years now. This idea that people think, I know better than you, and therefore I will not let you be polluted by these things. These things, your ideas or your jokes, worst of all, are so offensive and so evil that I'm going to prejudge it and not even let you know what it is. It reminds me of when Samuel Johnson wrote the first ever copy of the dictionary, this massive achievement back in the day, another similarly huge book, and he was received by all the different groups of London at the time, including a delegation of the sort of senior polite ladies of the city, who were sort of the prudes of their day. And they said, Dr. Johnson, we want to congratulate you on not including any filthy or rude words in your dictionary. To which he said to them, well, ladies, I'd like to congratulate you on knowing what they were in order to look them up.
Exactly right. But you know, Bob Monkhouse was a nice man who entertained millions of people, popular TV star, with a lovely family, decent guy, was never involved in scandals. And this is the way the BBC treats his memory and his family, that their sensibilities, this nice story, is not as important as the sensibilities of some little jerk who's worried about the sexism of Bob's jokes. That's Planet BBC for you. So warped, it doesn't bear thinking about.
Well, to be honest, I don't know how many BBC comedies you've listened to or watched recently, but they wouldn't know a joke if one snuck up and hit them, right? So I'm not sure they're the best judge of these things. And it's nice, at least, I hope, that this book will see the light of day in some other way. I'm sure that AI or something could go and fix this stuff, because there's still the physical version of it. But you know, it's not just in this Bob Monkhouse joke book case. This is happening all over the place now, where various books that are considered to be problematic are being reprinted, not in the original text. It's happened to a lot of the James Bond novels, where all kinds of, you know, unpleasant things by today's standards are written about, but rather than trust that people are grown up enough to be able to take that on board and understand that people, shock horror, thought different things back in the day, they erase them. They literally erase them. I think it even happened to a copy of 1984, which would be too ironic for words, but it happens in Roald Dahl, it happens, I think, in Enid Blyton. They change all these sorts of, you know, the names that you might think, ooh, that's a bit retrograde today, and they're literally erasing the past by doing this. And so whilst, you know, you might think, oh, it's just a few jokes. No, it's that instinct to control and to cancel and to censor that is a destructive force in our civilization, and we need to oppose it wherever we can.
Absolutely, and it's based on the arrogant presupposition that we here in 2026, we are the finest, cleverest, most sensitive generation who have ever lived, ever, and we're so much better than anyone who ever lived before, so we have every right to judge whether or not Bob Monkhouse was an odious sexist who should never be mentioned in polite society. This is not the best generation that we have ever seen in this country, around the world as well, not by a long chalk. In fact, the more I live in it, the more I think this might be the worst generation imaginable. James, really good to talk to you as always. Thanks so much for coming on. Come on again soon. The brilliant James Price, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go to break. Let me know what you think about some of the things we were discussing there, net zero in particular. What can we do about this lunatic Ed Miliband? Why is Keir Starmer, why is he being allowed to impoverish this nation? Why is he being allowed to fly in the face of the truth, of logic, and send our energy bills soaring, to do nothing about the impending massive oil shortage that will send petrol prices rocketing? Life is terrible because of Ed Miliband. If we just had a sensible energy secretary who opened up North Sea oil and gas, allowed us to frack, allowed us to more sensibly use fossil fuels, our energy bills would be a fraction of what they are. Everybody would be better off. Instead, we have a Prime Minister who allows a madman to ruin our lives. Let me know what you think about that. 03444 499 1000. Never mind stop the boats. Stop Ed Miliband. Now. 03444 499 1000. Next up, let's return to the thorny issue of anti-Semitism, which we saw in all its horror 2 nights ago near where I lived, when those 4 ambulances run by a Jewish charity were firebombed. Police still trying to work out, oh, was that terrorism? Yes, it was. Just do your job. Don't worry. Driving me nuts. Anyway, we'll deal with that story when we come back. Stay tuned.
Brand new for 2026. It's going to be the only way to start your day. It's the home of common sense. It's where the nation can come to speak about the day's news. It's the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show. You know who you are. You get up, you graft, you work hard. I'm here for you. We want to hear your side. Promise you one thing. It is where the nation can and will come to talk. The Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show, weekdays from 6 a.m.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Well, 2 nights ago, in the early hours actually of yesterday morning, around about 1:30 a.m., 4 ambulances were firebombed in Golders Green, the Jewish area of North London, not far from where I live. It woke my wife up, the explosions, oxygen tanks going up in the back of the ambulances. So, you know, sometimes these stories actually affect you personally. So, in the wake of this, you know, we've got all the usual platitudes from Keir Starmer, Sadiq Khan, you know, our thoughts are with, and this kind, there's no place in society for this kind of, for anti-Semitism. And it's just platitudinous claptrap. What have these two guys, particularly Starmer, what has he done to stop the rise of anti-Semitism since October the 7th? I'll tell you what he's done. The square root of sod all. It's a disgrace. Let's talk to a journalist and Jewish campaigner, Nicole Lampert. Hello, Nicole.
Hi, Kevin. How you doing?
Good to see you. Fantastic piece you wrote for the Telegraph. Very strong. Detailing just why we should be quite so horrified about what happened in Golders Green. yesterday, in the early hours of yesterday morning. This a harmless, a Jewish charity, 4 ambulances there for the use of the entire community, not just Jewish people, and 3 guys in hoods come and firebomb them. Why do you think it is that the police, what are we now, day and a half on, are lost in deliberation? Was this terrorism, or was it potentially an anti-Semitic crime, a hate crime? What? Don't worry about that. It was terrorism. Why is it every single time that the first thing that happens when you get this kind of incident, the police, they disappear into darkened rooms and start deliberating about, or their mission seems to be working towards a position where they can say, good news, it wasn't terrorism. Why do they do this every time?
Well, it reminds me of the time, just going back to October 7, when we saw you couldn't get a clearer view of what terrorism looks like from a prescribed terrorist organisation, and yet the BBC to this day won't call Hamas terrorists. So certainly there's lots of discussion about terrorism, what it means, and whether Palestine Action, for example, deserve to be called terrorists. But just if you look at the definition of the word, part of it is just about the idea of creating terror, and that's what's happened. Certainly within the Jewish community, people are once again frightened. Obviously, we saw a terrorist attack, and they did call it a terrorist attack in Manchester a few months ago, which ended with 2 men dead, several others in hospital. And so we are, as a community, we're scared, we're angry, we're terrified, and mainly, as you said at the kind of start of this, we are just frustrated with the idea of words. But where is the action? Where is someone going to do something?
Yeah.
When are we going to address some of these issues? Starting with the fact that in the street, almost every week, they call to globalise the Intifada. The Intifada was a series of terrorist acts in 2000 to 2002, in which suicide bombers went into cafes and restaurants and buses and blew themselves up. And that was what they're calling for on our streets. And we've had 2 police forces say that they're going to arrest people for using those words, but no one else. It's not coming from the Home Office. There's no joined up thinking. And I was at the CST dinner last night, which the CST is the Community Security Trust, which basically keeps the Jewish community safe, or does its best by having security guards outside synagogues, schools, nurseries, all of that. And Shabana Mahmood was the guest speaker, and she told us about how terrible anti-Semitism was, as if no one in the room knew. And
yes, I said, who knew? Yeah.
Yes. And the best thing they can do is give us some policemen with guns to protect us.
Well, look, I mean, we're just looking, if everybody's watching the people are watching on the TV, you can see that 3 of these, and one is badly damaged, 3 are completely destroyed. And these, as I say, I live about 1.5 miles from there, and my wife woke me up in the middle of the night and said, did you hear that explosion? I said, no. I said, it's just a truck, shut up. It was this. It was these ambulances blowing up. And look at it. Look at it. That's not a hate crime. That's terrorism. Clearly, obviously. Now, on that front, let me remind you of what happened 9 days ago in London. That was the Iran fan demo, the Al-Quds rally in central London. This is our friend Bob Villan, Pascal Robinson Foster, as he's known, a good street name, This is the guy that shouted death, death to the IDF at Glastonbury on TV. After 6 months, the Avon and Somerset police mysteriously decided that didn't meet the criminal threshold, although it sounds to me like it's a call to kill Jews. It's as simple as that. Anyway, here he is at the Al-Quds demo 9 days ago. Death to the IDF! Now, he's at it again. This is filmed, recorded, as you can see. We got in touch with the police like the day after, say, will you be investigating Pascal Robinson Foster for a potential Jewish hate crime or a public order offence. I mean, they're calling for the death of people. Whether or not they're Jewish, I thought that was against the law, but there you are. Will you be investigating? Yes, we're looking into it. We're investigating. OK, so what's to investigate? It doesn't need Sherlock Holmes, does it? Here we are, 9 days later. We've phoned the police again, no response. They're not investigating this at all, are they? They're allowing this. This is OK with the police. It shouldn't be, should it?
Well, absolutely. I kind of feel, yeah, if you're calling for the death of people, then that should be a hate crime, if nothing else. Otherwise, what's the point of the use of the word hate crime? We've seen people arrested for saying women are women, and a female is a woman is an adult female. So how is that acceptable when it's basic biology, as opposed to calling for the death of people? And it feels a bit mad to me that they're even pretending to look into this, because unless the CPS changes its mind, and that is something that Jewish groups and others are calling for, that they look at anti-Semitism and just kind of think a bit more about what it means when we have actually seen people killed on our streets. Until the CPS changes the way it looks at anti-Semitism, then the police can investigate it for as long as they want, but until the CPS says, yeah, this is a crime, then it's not going to be, however we go back. So, I just keep thinking about how I heard that call after it appeared at Glastonbury. I heard it being shouted across the bridge in Sydney about 2 months before Bondi Beach happened, and I just thought then, like, you're allowing this to become popular.
Tolerating it. You're absolutely right, and this is what I'm talking about. That this kind of casual acceptance of this kind of anti-Semitism, oh, well, it's not really worth bothering about. That's what leads to the firebombing of the ambulances, and that could get worse. And indeed, the attack on the Manchester synagogue back in October that killed two Jewish people. Now, here is, with a view to this kind of casual dismissal of anti-Semitism as not something you want to get too worked up about. With that kind of attitude pervading all of our society. This is Ed Balls, the former Labour politician, Labour MP. Of course, the Labour Party have never had any problems with anti-Semitism. Oh, wait a minute, they have serious problems. So Ed Balls hails from the Labour Party. He now masquerades as a very low-quality TV presenter on Good Morning Britain. Here he is yesterday, hours after the firebomb attack, interviewing Dov Foreman, whose great-grandmother was a Holocaust survivor, Lily Ebert. This is Ed Balls interviewing Dov Foreman, and as far as I can work out, suggesting, well, this firebomb attack, do you think it was the Jews' fault? Watch this.
And Dov, when you see last week the Shadow Justice Secretary Nick Timothy singling out the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, for praying in Trafalgar Square in a Muslim group and saying that is wrong and shouldn't happen, isn't that the kind of intolerance and divisiveness which is causing problems in the Jewish community right now? Do you condemn that as well?
Well, look, I think that the Shadow Justice Secretary was going to a point which many people in this country feel about Islamist extremism. I won't get drawn into a debate on whether his words were right or wrong. We're here to talk about this anti-Semitic attack this morning on the Jewish community. But certainly, as you say, we need to be careful with our words. But as I say, there are people, including many in the Jewish community, who are worried about the spread of Islamist extremism that's running rampant across society. I'm a university student. Across my university, UCL, I see people every single day, not just mourning the death of the Ayatollahs and extremists and supporting terrorist groups, but actually radical.
There you go, Nicole. So what he's basically saying, it wasn't just Jewish people who criticised the mass Muslim prayer session in Trafalgar Square.
It wasn't really Jewish people at all, actually.
Yeah, but then what he's saying is, well, look, you Jews, you got involved in criticising that, didn't you? Well, if you're going to foment that sort of hatred, this firebomb attack could be seen as your fault, couldn't it? That was the tenor of his question. Absolutely disgusting. What a disgusting thing to say.
It reminds me a little bit of when they condemn anti-Semitism, then almost always they condemn anti-Semitism and Islamophobia as if they are the same. Now, of course, there are two types of, they're both hatreds against people of various religions, but Jews are not trying to kill Muslims. There are no attacks in this country of Jews on Muslims, whereas we have had multiple terrorist attacks from extremist Islamists. And I'm not talking about the great majority of Muslims at all who are peace-loving, but Muslims themselves are aware that there are extremists in their community, and that they're attacking the moderate Muslims the most. So what we're seeing is, I don't understand how it could possibly be equated, and that Dov, who is a very impressive young man, should somehow be forced to defend extremist Islam when he's at the scene of an attack from what is most likely being done by extremist Islamists.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable and just so depressing. And I should just say, and I don't know whether you've discussed it at all, but one of the things about these ambulances is that there's now these conspiracy theories that the Jews did it themselves.
I know.
It's false flag.
Absolute crap. Absolute crap. Happens every time. I just think that question by Ed Balls just speaks 1,000 words. Absolutely disgusting question. Blaming the Tories and, Jewish people who criticised the mass praying session. It wasn't just Jewish people. If Jewish people did criticise it or raise concerns about it, that would have been the same as everyone else. Do we want to see 3,000 people from a particular religion praying? By the way, a couple of days later, in a place called South Heath Park in Birmingham, 30,000 Muslims prayed in the open air. So I think it's worth discussing, but clearly Ed Balls thinks that the firebomb attack could be the fault of Jews for taking part in the hatred against Muslims for their praying sessions. Ed, you need help. No, you don't. You're a member of the Labour Party, aren't you? So you're just one of them. Nicole, great to talk to you. Fabulous piece in the Daily Telegraph. Nicole Lambert, the Jewish journalist. What do you think? I mean, we've got a problem, haven't we? I mean, anti-Semitism comes in all these forms. As Nicole was just saying, people starting to say, the Jews did this themselves to curry sympathy. Firebomb their own ambulances. Yeah, right, of course they did, yeah. Ed Balls, do you think, didn't you set up the atmosphere of hatred by criticising the Muslims that might have led to these firebomb attacks? That is an absolute disgrace, what Ed Balls said. Let me know what you think. 0344 499 1000. Also, when are the Met Police going to tell us how their investigation into Bob Vill and Pascal Robinson Foster is going? Was that a hate crime? Was that a public order offence, or was it not? 9 days it's taken them. You're on watch. We've got a countdown going, Met Police. Please let us know as soon as you can. No answer from them today, not surprising. Because I tell you what, call me cynical, but my personal speculation, they haven't done a damn thing, and they're not going to do a damn thing. Bob can go round calling for the death of Jewish soldiers as much as he likes, because, hey, it's anti-Semitism. We don't really care about that much, do we? Well, we bloody well ought to. 0344 499 1000. Let's talk about HMS Dragon when we come back. It has arrived in Cyprus. Yeah! Took 3 weeks to get from Portsmouth. Unbelievable. We will talk about that next, and other military issues when it comes to the defence of Britain. The defence of Britain, which looks to me to be pretty much non-existent. That next. Stay tuned.
the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's talk about the defence of Britain and indeed HMS Dragon. With Colonel James Sunderland, former Bracknell MP for the Tories and obviously as a soldier, a military expert. Colonel James Sunderland, welcome to the show. HMS Dragon, James, whoop whoop, has finally arrived at Cyprus 3 weeks after it was deployed. It left Portsmouth, I think it was about 8 or 9 days after the Prime Minister said it should go to Cyprus to defend British citizens there. Then it bobbed around. It was described as bobbing around in the Channel, where it had a few more repairs done to it. Got to Gibraltar, spent about 4 days there, and has now finally arrived at Cyprus, where at long last it will help the Greek Navy, the French Navy and the Dutch Navy protect British citizens, the 100,000 British citizens and military personnel who live on that Mediterranean island. It's not impressive, is it?
Hi, Kevin. No, not impressive at all. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? This failure is being played out on the world stage right now. I mean, aside from the fact that the ship wasn't ready, the crew weren't ready, it's taken 3 weeks to get there. No doubt there were some sea trials, some training, perhaps further resupply in Gibraltar on the way to Cyprus. But she is a very potent ship, and now that she's there, I've no doubt at all that the weaponry and the armaments and the protection on that vessel will do their job in terms of defending Cyprus. But interesting, isn't it, as well, that this operational failure with the ship not being ready and the fact that we've had a permanent naval presence in the Gulf for 40 years until the point that Labour decommissioned HMS Lancaster before Christmas. What's interesting, this is now a strategic failure, and it's a real shame. We need to recover quickly, in my view.
Indeed. Now, closer to home, if you like, for the people who live in Britain, especially London, the Israelis have made no bones about it. They believe that the Iranians now have missiles capable of reaching Great Britain. They kind of displayed that with these attacks over the weekend on Diego Garcia and the Chagos Islands, which are sort of equidistant from Iran to Britain. So the Israelis say, make no mistake, the mad mullahs could hit London if they wanted to. Now, yesterday, the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, was addressing, or was the guest of the, or being grilled by the Liaison Committee in Parliament. And he refused to answer that question, whether or not he thought the Iranians could reach London. He dodged that question, to which I conclude the answer is they do have these weapons. It's not good enough, is it, for a guy to sit there refusing to answer this key question. And he echoed what the Housing Minister, Steve Reed, said on telly, on the media round at the weekend. Well, in essence, they said, well, don't worry too much about whether or not they've got these missiles that can reach London. We don't think they're targeting us, so we're OK then. Oh, well, that's all right. That's not all right, is it? This is extremely worrying. You get the feeling more and more and more that Starmer and his pacifist cabinet are not the people to be running this country in these extremely tense and difficult times.
Interesting question, Kevin. I think what's interesting here, first of all, is that there is a fine line between transparency, the need for a Prime Minister to brief the country on what is and what's not happening, and operational detail. There are clearly, classified reasons why the government won't release the detail of how far short the Iranian missile landed from the Chagos. In the same detail, the government's not going to publish details of whether or not a missile from Tehran can land in London. But what is unquestionable is that the Chinese, the Iranians, the Russians, and North Korea have within them the capability to launch an intercontinental ballistic missile that far, 5,000 kilometers. And in my humble view, this should be enough of a scary story for the UK to start investing in some kind of Iron Dome capability. We will need to have, in due course, air defence systems across London to stop anything being logged internationally. We've got the capability at our air fighting Dale to spot these things coming. They're not that quick in terms of overall timelines and speed, so it should be really possible to get the right air defence capabilities to knock them out.
James, really good to talk to you. Thank you so much for coming on. Always a pleasure. James Sunderland there, Colonel James Sunderland, military expert, would be, wouldn't he, as an ex-soldier, and former Tory MP for Bracknell. Good guy. Let me know what you think about that. I mean, Keir Starmer should be telling us, shouldn't he? He dodged the question. That's not good enough. Don't play politics with our lives. Can these missiles from the Iranians reach London, or can they not? Don't dodge the question and then say, oh, we don't think they're targeting us. Oh, that's all right then. It's unbelievable. 03444991000. We'll talk to the chairman of Migration Watch UK, Huw Edwards, after the break. Lots of depressing new developments on the migrant crisis front. You won't be surprised to hear that next. Stay tuned.
Brand new for 2026. It's going to be the only way to start your day. It's the home of common sense. It's where the nation can come to speak about the day's news. It's the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show. You know who you are. You get up, you graft, you work hard. I'm here for you. We want to hear your side. Promise you one thing. It is where the nation can and will come to talk. The Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show, weekdays from 6 a.m.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's go straight over to my next guest. He's the chairman of Migration Watch UK, Huw Edwards. Welcome, Huw.
Good to be here, Kevin.
Always a pleasure to have you on the show. Let me just run through what's happened since last Wednesday in terms of illegal crossings in small boats by migrants of the English Channel from France. Last Wednesday, 262. Thursday, 144. Friday, 116. They had a day off on Saturday, 190 on Sunday, and 272 yesterday, which is something like 700 or 800. So massive week. As soon as the weather's good across they come. So that's just to illustrate that this problem is not only still with us, frankly, it's getting worse because we have a government not putting up any deterrents whatsoever. We learn, incredibly, that the 3-year deal that Rishi Sunak did with the French to not patrol their beaches very well for £475 million, nearly £500 million, 3 years ago, is almost up. So our Home Office officials are locked in negotiations with the French to renew this. Shabana Mahmood, quite reasonably in my view, given that it transpires the gendarmes have only intercepted 37% of the boats and migrants trying to cross the channel, so they haven't really done a very good job. Shabana Mahmood has put into the mix, so, well, look, if we're going to renegotiate this, if we're going to pay you the best part of £160 million every year for you to patrol the beaches, and you're clearly not doing it very well, we're going to put in a clause that will pay you by results. So if you don't stop many boats, you don't get nearly as much money. You'll be shocked to hear, Alp, that the French don't like this idea. Why do you think that is?
Well, I frankly, in many respects, I hope that this deal doesn't happen, because we'll find yet again that we will give millions and millions to our French friends, and the result will be exactly as it's been every time we've signed up to these things. If they're really serious, and I've said this to you before, I think, Kevin, if they're really serious about stopping them and putting them back on their own shores, then why not agree to us actually doing the job for them and depositing them back on their shores in the way that one assumes that they would do if they were up to the job? Clearly they're not. But my fear is that we will sign up to another deal. It's going to cost us millions and millions, and we're going to get nothing for it, and the taxpayer ends up paying through the nose for it. Kevin, we're soon going to come up to 200,000 since this all started. 200,000 since 2018, and there weren't very many in 2018. 200,000 people who've come here. Something like 3%, 3 and a bit percent maybe, have actually, of those who've crossed the channel, have actually been sent back or onward to their own country or whatever. That's really, that's a sizable town. Now, the Dutch did some calculations not so long ago and worked out that each migrant who comes in this way ends up costing a lifetime cost of something like £450,000, £400,000 at least. 200,000 people. We're talking about £80 billion over a lifetime. I mean, it's just mind-boggling. And why we don't do something about it, why we don't get serious about stopping and sending on, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the cost, each one of those more than 800,000 migrants who came across since last Wednesday, my guess is, I'm looking at the weather today, it's not quite as nice. It may tail off a bit now, but you never know. But once the weather's nice, you can guarantee they'll come across in their hundreds. Each one of those 800 plus migrants that have come over since last Wednesday will cost us, the British taxpayer, £40,000. Each one of them, £40,000 each.
Yeah.
A single boat, adds up to a cost of about £10 million for the year for British taxpayers. And yet we have a government. I mean, so this is a clear and pressing, if nothing else, it is a clear and pressing drain on taxpayers' money that the government ought to do something about. And yet they don't. They don't seem to have any serious sense of urgency about this. Shabana Mahmood makes the right noises. Then we hear left-wing Labour backbenchers will vote her down to the extent that she's apparently threatening to resign. So we've got a rare Labour politician wants to do something about it, or at least try to. And she gets howled down to the point where she said, well, sod it, I'll resign. It's hopeless.
I hope she does resign. Yeah. I really do hope she does resign. Then perhaps it will eventually sink into number 10 and Sir Keir Starmer that this issue is one that they have a responsibility, a duty to make an attempt at solving. And at the moment, they're doing nothing of the sort. All they're saying is, well, these people have rights and we can't go beyond doing what is necessary and what we've signed up to do in accordance with international law. International law is dominating, is really guiding us in every direction that we need to take, away from every direction that we need to take. It's wrong. And it's the British people are totally fed to the teeth, to the back teeth with all this. And I guarantee that come the next election, they will make their displeasure and their disquiet known, as Sir Keir Starmer will find out.
Yeah, well, all these politicians, Westminster politicians, particularly Labour politicians, are very keen to say, no, it's the economy, stupid. It's the economy. That's what wins and loses elections. Well, we actually know, due to polling, that the number one issue that will determine the next election, Labour politicians, Keir Starmer, they don't want to hear it, but it's the migrant crisis. So
absolutely.
I've just worked out that the migrants that have come over since last Wednesday alone will cost us about £33 million over the next year. That's less than a week's worth.
And Kevin, I really, it's important that we look at what it's going to cost over the next year or so. But these people arrive and they stay their whole lives. They're here for good. And it's the continuing cost, really, of having people who are not doing high-skill, high-paid jobs. Quite often they're on benefits, I have to say. And it's this continuing cost, really, that we've also got to look at and take seriously.
Absolutely, Alp. It's always great to have you on the show. Thank you so much for your time. Alp Mehmet there, the chairman, the excellent chairman of Migration Watch UK, one of the good guys who works very hard on this issue. Our government doesn't really, in the end, seem to care that much, does it? Let me know what you think. 0344499 1000. When we come back, we are going to be talking to Philip Kisley, so stay tuned.
UK. On DAB+. On your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. This is the second hour of today's Drive Time show. Net zero, or in Crazy Ed Miliband's case, nut zero. Is this the guy you want in charge of our energy policies at a time like this? A guy who believes that the Middle Eastern war and the imminent threat of probably the world's worst oil shortage ever should be confronted by doubling down on our commitment to renewables, to windmills and solar panels, even though this country cannot be powered by windmills and solar panels alone, to say the least. Is this the kind of mad ideologue nonsense that we want at a time like this? Guy's a zealot. This guy's crazy. Tell me what you think about Ed Miliband. Is he the most dangerous man in Britain? I've got my suspicions. 0344 499 1000. Why won't the Prime Minister do something? This is not the time for this sixth form activism, virtue signalling about this green claptrap. We need cheap energy, and we need to employ all the facilities we have in order to keep petrol prices down, because trust me folks, they are about to rocket off the scale, probably to a price that you've never seen before. So, Ed Miliband, not doing anything. Oh, I've got to have renewables, windmills, solar farms. Oh, shut up. It's unbelievable. I can't believe it. It's like being governed by sixth formers. Just ridiculous. 0344 499 1000. Let's go over to my first guest. He is the Senior Fellow at the New Culture Forum, Philip Kinsley. Hello, Philip.
Hi, Kev. It's great to see you.
Always a pleasure. Now, first of all, let's talk about what I was just mentioning. I think we've got a serious problem here. We have this guy, Ed Miliband, who's our net zero secretary. There are realities that this country, the world is facing right now. We are on the edge, on the precipice of the world's worst oil shortage in history, in all of history. You know, prices are going to rocket off the scale. Every nation needs to take serious measures to do what they can to protect their citizens from this financial onslaught caused by an oil shortage. Petrol prices are about to rocket unbelievably. Everything's going to go up. We have the most powerful cabinet secretary we've got, Ed Miliband, who said now's not the time to show weakness. Now's the time to double down on our commitment to renewables, to windmills, to solar farms, solar panels. He is propagating total lies. This country cannot ever be powered purely by wind and sun. And even if it could, now is not the time, is it? It's very frightening that we have this hardline, crazy zealot making our energy policies at the moment, and a Prime Minister who lets him get away with his lunacy.
Oh yeah, we've got a prime minister who's completely ineffectual, and we know that, and we just take him out of the equation because he's totally useless. But this is about ideology, isn't it? This is about utopianism, and if there's one time you do not need ideology and you do not need utopianism, you need practicality, you need reality, is when you're on a war footing. And this man is incredibly dangerous. We have a society at the moment which is on the brink. I think I tweeted about this the other day because I was feeling a bit miserable. What had happened in Golders Green after all the anti-Semitism, after all the unrest, it feels as though this society is on the brink. All it will take is for an economic recession to really push us into a different kind of reality. Basically, what you were just saying there in that short monologue, we don't know what's going to hit us, okay? Economic depression is something completely different to all of the cultural upheaval that we've got. It pushes you into a different situation. People become desperate. When people cannot feed their children, when people cannot heat their homes, that is a different story entirely. And we are looking at something different. I think you just said before, this is kind of unprecedented. We've never had kind of oil prices rises, petrol, stuff like this before. I think you're absolutely right, and I think it's going to be really frightening. Now, Ed Miliband is absolutely the last person you would want anywhere near any of this stuff.
Anything, to be honest with you. Yeah,
well, but the only other person who I can think is, you know, almost as dangerous is Angela Rayner, and they look like the two choices we've got at the moment going forward. So it's this thing, isn't it? It's the old adage, isn't it? You know, be careful what you wish for, because everybody wants Starmer gone. Yeah, everybody wants Starmer gone. But what are we going to get in their place, in his place? And that process of change will be a catalyst. Sorry to be doom and gloom, but it will send us down. It will take us into a different reality, and it's going to be very
an energy secretary who's a pragmatist. I mean, we should be fracking, we should be we should be relaxing all our rules and regulations about fossil fuels. Now is not the time for ideology. Now is the time to save the people of Britain from utter penury. This is Ed Miliband in September 2024.
Onshore wind, solar power, offshore wind, nuclear, tidal, hydrogen, carbon capture, an armoury of clean power, solar panels on your local school, your local housing estate, your community centre, turbines, batteries, thousands of projects across Britain, tackling fuel poverty, warmer homes, lower bills. Over 1 million families lifted out of fuel poverty. That is the difference the Labour government makes.
That is one long stream of pure crap, absolute rubbish. And guess what? Our energy prices haven't come down. They've rocketed up. How much longer are we going to be in the grip of this palpable madman?
Yeah, absolutely. And you were looking at the delivery there. It was maniacal. Actually, it was obsessive. This is an obsessive man. Again, as I said before, the very last person you want to be in charge of something so important as the country's energy. And the stuff he was selling there, it was everything that nobody wants. Turbines. Who wants turbines, for God's sake? Solar panels all over the place. I live in an 18th century house. The last thing I want is it festooned in solar panels. You know what I mean? And so all of this stuff is just ludicrous. It is divorced from reality, and for me that is the frightening thing. And we know, because we get our bills every I get an email every month saying this is how much you're paying, and it's eye-watering. Okay, we know that we're paying the highest bills in Europe, and yet they still push these lies at us. But they push these lies
in the world, Philip, in the world. Our energy prices are the highest in the world. There's something like 5 times more than America. You know, you could talk about the lunacy till the cows come home. I mean, you know, we don't frack because they cause earthquakes. No, it doesn't. You know, it could. We don't want an earthquake on the Blackpool prom. Don't be so pathetically ridiculous. Of course, there won't be an earthquake in Blackpool, and yet that's why we banned it. But we buy, you know, so we polish our own halos and we buy fracked fuel, fracked energy from America. We don't use fossil fuels, but the Chinese do. They have 1,100 fossil fuel power stations churning out our windmills, our solar panels. So the cycle of hypocritical lunacy, derangement, it's just off the scale, and yet we are trapped in it thanks to Ed Miliband. It is terrifying. I've got to move on, though. I want to get you on this. This is You know, obviously we had the terrible firebomb attack on the 4 ambulances, the Jewish charity ambulances in Golders Green in North London in the early hours of yesterday morning, about 1:30 in the morning. The police still deliberating. Was this terrorism? Was it a Jewish hate crime? Solve it. Just investigate it. Of course it was terrorism. They're trying to downplay it as always. Yesterday morning on Good Morning Britain, the former Labour MP, Labour bigwig actually, Ed Balls, who now fancies himself as a TV host, he was on Good Morning Britain, and this is him quizzing a Jewish campaigner, Dov Foreman. He's the British author, and his great-grandmother was a Holocaust survivor. Lily Ebbett was her name. This is Ed Balls. What do you make of this question? Listen to this.
And Dov, when you see last week the Shadow Justice Secretary Nick Timothy singling out the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, for praying in Trafalgar Square in a Muslim group and saying that is wrong and shouldn't happen, isn't that the kind of intolerance and divisiveness which is causing problems in the Jewish community right now? Do you condemn that as well?
Yeah, so that's the question. I mean, what he seems to be saying to me, Philip, is, you know, is this attack on the firebomb attack on the Jewish charity ambulances, is that the Jews' fault? It's the Jews' fault, isn't it, for fomenting this hatred towards Muslims after the mass prayer session in Trafalgar Square? What a disgusting question. What a disgraceful thing to ask.
I mean, I heard the question pretty much immediately after he asked it, because it went viral, and rightly so. I think it was an appalling, disgusting, as you say, that's the right word for it, disgusting question. And they should have apologized. The channel and the presenter should have apologized immediately. I don't think they have done. Yeah. But what we have here is an anti-Semitism, a Jew hate that is being fueled not only by the mainstream media, by the institutions. This isn't just street level Islamism. This is sophisticated identity politics. This is the extreme left. This is the extreme right. It's all of this coming together in a perfect storm of Jew hate. And we talked last week about the Iranian war, and I said last week on this show, I said we're going to feel the ramifications of this in dirty guerrilla warfare, terrorism on the streets. It's going to be there are going to be direct ramifications. We have that now. If this terror group who've claimed responsibility have done it, and let me just read their name out to you, Kev, because this tells you all you need to know. The Islamic Movement of the People of the Right Hand. Now, why are we having to deal with these people in this country? Why are we having to deal with this kind of sectarianism, this kind of balkanization? Why are Jews being targeted? But more importantly, why are we, as a society and as a government and as a police force, why are we letting Jews be targeted in this way? The only thing that Keir Starmer came out with was some, a generic tweet of there is no place for anti-Semitism
in our society. The point is, Philip,
it's riven with anti-Semitism.
There is it shouldn't be, but there's a lot of places for anti-Semitism, and our Prime Minister, indeed the London Mayor as well, have done nothing about it. Not a damn thing. Not a damn thing.
No, we've had hate marches for years now. We've had, every time something happens, then immediately there is a kind of a bolstering of anti-Semitism. Jews get attacked, and then there's anti-Semitism on the streets. People say they are false flag attacks. People just don't believe it. People say, oh well, they've done it themselves. All of this kind of thing points to the kind of anti-Semitism that is at crisis point in this country. And if you have that kind of hatred and you do nothing about it, then of course those people are just going to leave. I know Jews, I've got many Jewish friends, and many of them are talking about leaving this country. That would be catastrophic for British culture. That would be catastrophic for this society. But people are not being punished for hate crime and terrorism, and it's just rife and it's disgusting, as you said.
And I think a lot of people don't quite understand. I mean, you know, that it's almost a sort of casual anti-Semitism. I've seen lots of people, perfectly decent people who haven't really read up on it, saying, "Oh, if these Jews are so frightened, why don't they just leave? Why don't they go?" Well, I'll tell you why. It's because they're British, born and bred. That's why they don't leave. This is their home, and we ought to make them feel at home. It's an absolute damn disgrace. And this Labour government, you know, come on, we all know about the Labour Party, don't we?
I mean, just one other point here, and it's an obvious point to make, but I'm going to make it anyway. Imagine if this was levelled, this kind of hatred and this kind of violence and intimidation was levelled at any other single group. There would be outrage. Imagine if it was levelled at Muslims. Imagine if it was levelled at African Caribbeans or West Africa.
You're right.
Any other group, there would be outrage, and rightly so. But because it's Jews, the Jews get blamed for their own persecution, and that is the measure of really dangerous anti-Semitism.
It's the racism that we seem to tolerate, and the government doesn't seem to have done anything about that. Before you go, let's go off-piste. I want to get your view on this. This is on Channel 5 tonight, drama. It's called The Downfall of Huw Edwards. Huw Edwards, of course, the BBC's former in-house paedophile who announced the death of the Queen, their chief newsreader, who was a child sex abuser. That's good, isn't it? Thanks, BBs. Thanks, Auntie Beeb. You're so special. Here's the trailer for The Downfall of Huw Edwards, which is on Channel 5 tonight.
Martin Clune stars in Power, The Downfall of Huw Edwards. Watch, stream on 5.
You're welcome, Channel 5. I'll take a fee for advertising your show, but I'm going to actually watch that one. It's about, I want to talk to you about Huw Edwards. You know, first of all, he should have gone to jail. He's an illustration of this strange syndrome where nearly all paedophiles in this country, on their first arrest, no matter how serious their crimes, don't tend to go to jail. Vast majority of them given suspended sentences like Huw Edwards were. So that should stop. How are you going to discourage paedophilia if you don't punish paedophiles properly, if you let them walk free, which they do, like Huw Edwards? Anyway, but Huw Edwards himself is now, you know, on his high horse, complaining to Channel 5, saying, he said, they made no attempt to check with me the truth of any aspect of their narrative before going ahead with the production. They belatedly asked for a response after the drama had been made, while reserving the right to edit any such response. They also refused to disclose whether any of those making allegations had been paid for their contributions. Channel 5's factual drama is hardly likely to convey the reality of what happened. He went on to say, it's difficult to see how this approach can be considered remotely responsible or fair, or be in compliance with key sections of the Ofcom code on broadcast standards. I tell you the broadcast standards I'd like to see applied, that in future the chief news anchor of the state broadcaster is not a child sex abuser. That's the kind of standards I'd like to see applied, wouldn't you?
I certainly would. I mean, the pomposity of this and the self-importance is just absolutely staggering. You know, he still is, you know, a pompous paedophile. My God, how revolting. Can we just call him that from now on? But there are a few things here, Kev, which are really disturbing. Okay, what he's doing is, it's the classic thing that all abusers do. They try to control and manipulate the narrative. He isn't talking about the truth here. He's talking about his
truth, yeah.
Yeah, and that's what they'll do. So there are a couple of things that come from that as well. So one, the fact that he feels as though he can talk like this in the media and try and spin his story. He doesn't realize how the country at large finds him revolting, actually. So he hasn't come to terms with the enormity of his horrible crimes. Okay, I think that's one thing. Okay, and I think it's a really, really important thing. But there's something more, I think, and it's the fact that people aren't really, other than a few people like us and this channel, but people should really be pushing back on this and really demanding that he gets his just desserts, you know, and that, or at least saying that the sentence wasn't enough, you know, and really, really pushing back. I don't think we're doing that because he obviously hasn't learned a lesson. And from the way he's talking, he is still thinking like an abuser. And
you're right. Really, they do. You're right. They manipulate the truth. That's what they do. They're very manipulative people. Just read the rest of his statement. My deep regret and remorse for the crimes I committed were expressed in court. In pleading guilty at the earliest opportunity, I took full responsibility for my reprehensible actions. I am repelled by the idea that some people enjoy viewing indecent images of children. By some people, he means him. Every image represents an innocent victim. I offer my sincere and profound apologies for what I did. Oh, well, that's all right then. But this is what gets on my nerves. He starts playing the mental health card.
Yeah.
This is a slow process given the fragile state of my health. I've been open about my struggle with persistent mental illness over a period of 25 years. He goes on to say that doesn't excuse his crime. Quite right. So stop going on about it.
This is framed in a particular way, isn't it? It's kind of, oh, what I did was terrible, you know, and I'm terribly sorry, but actually the essence of everything he's talking about is about him. He is presenting himself as the victim, and the actual victim is being marginalized here. And again, that is classic abuser behavior. We should be more outraged about this, I think. I think the public at large should be more outraged about this.
I agree with you,
for future cases, and we should be demanding that paedophiles in future should be going to prison.
Go to jail. He should have gone to jail. Let me know what you think, folks. Should Huw Edwards have gone to jail for his child sex abuse offence? 0344499 1000. Big thanks to Philip Kisley. Thank you, Philip, for an excellent 25 minutes or so. Next up, let's talk to Greg Swenson from the Republican Overseas Organisation here in London about the latest on Donald Trump's Middle Eastern war. That next. Stick around.
The world is on fire. Russia, Iran, China, conflicts brewing in all of their different regions. They're not waiting. But here in Britain, our armed forces are underfunded, they're undermanned, and they're underprepared. And nobody in government wants to talk about it. Well, we do. I'm Philip Ingram, and I spent my career in the world of intelligence, military planning, strategic planning, and unfortunately, conflict. This is Talk War, and this is where we analyse the conflicts shaping our world.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Greg Swedson from the Republican Overseas Organisation. He's not actually often in London, but he is at the moment. He's in the studio. Welcome, Greg.
Good to see you, Kevin.
Let's talk about Trump's war.
Yeah.
It started off well. I don't think it's going too well now. We've got the Daily Mail here. Trump blinks first. What is your president doing, going around saying, oh, they rang me up and I'm talking to them now, so I'm not going to bomb them anymore?
I think that...
Sounds a bit feeble to me, Greg.
No, I mean, the president doesn't want war. He felt compelled... No, I mean...
He's proved that over the last 3 weeks,
but he used diplomacy as, you know, they were trying to work things out with Iran, you know, and have them voluntarily stop producing a nuclear bomb, stop producing ballistic missiles, stop firing on their neighbors, stop funding the terrorist organizations.
Sure, I'm with all that.
So on all those metrics, Trump has already accomplished the main objectives of the war. And now we have got to deal with the Strait of Hormuz, granted. And if we have to deal with it...
It could be a big thing, though, couldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, look what we just did to the country. I mean, it's a huge country, and we've...
Yeah, but the Strait of Hormuz is difficult.
Right.
It's difficult. If you don't achieve regime change, if you do not get rid of the mad mullahs,
then we got to do it the hard way.
Then the Strait of Hormuz, I mean, they will probably try pretty soon to block it completely, which is what they're threatening, which is why the Daily Mail and most people in Britain are saying the president has blinked first.
Yeah.
Sorry, wrong way around.
It's no, but look, he would love to have an off-ramp. He'd love to have peace, but it's going to be on his terms. I mean, you know, they have no more defensive capabilities. I don't know how they're going to block the Strait of Hormuz with a couple of skiffs.
You've got all those mounted. They could just fire missiles.
And they have. You know, I mean, I know they still have missiles socked away. So it will be a deliberate and long process of finding every one of those missile silos and destroying them. But, you know, their Navy has been absolutely decimated. I mean, maybe sunk. And they've got maybe a couple of, you know, swift boats or speedboats.
Well, they haven't got much left. I agree with that, Greg. But the problem is that they have not achieved regime change. I mean, the mullahs are still in charge.
And that was a secondary, you know, goal for the U.S. I think it's
but if you don't get rid of them, it's basically you've denuded them. You've denuded all of their military forces. Absolutely. And by the way, I have no problem with the idea of the war. I think the Iranians were a lot closer to nuclear armament than people thought. Even I had John Bolton on my show last week, who is no fan of Donald Trump, and he said that he thinks they were within 72 hours of having... He actually backs the action. So do I. I'm a bit worried about the way it's working out.
They had 460 kilograms of 60% enriched fuel. I mean, that's 7 to 10 days. So if John Bolton thinks it's shorter,
what John actually said was, look, you know, all this nonsense about can Iran develop a nuclear weapon, he said they can have one in 72 hours. They can phone North Korea. North Korea will send them one. So he said that's always been...
I'm totally with you. Getting rid of the regime would be ideal. And so in many ways, I hope he just goes back at it, right? Because you're negotiating with lunatics who are going to cheat on any agreement that they make, right? So you can't trust them, and they're suicidal in most, you know. So maybe we just grant them their wish.
I mean, but when Iran said, so Trump on Friday said, I'll give you 48 hours. And if you don't unblock the Strait of Hormuz, I will blast you off the face of the earth. I'll blast your oil, your gas, and your water. I will completely destroy your infrastructure and make you inoperative as a country.
Right.
He said that, and they turned around and said, well, we're not doing it. And in fact, if you do it, we will block the Strait of Hormuz forever.
And a lot of other things.
Forever. He blinked, didn't he?
They had some.
He blinked.
No,
Come
I don't
on.
think so.
He blinked. I'm a big fan of Donald Trump,
of course,
but he buckled.
Of course,
they're winning.
But no, they're not winning. I mean, look, the
bluster.
bluster.
America's not looking great at the moment.
The bluster, because we have a mainstream media in the U.S. that's very hostile to the president. I mean, he could come up with free ice cream and lazy Sundays, as Fetterman said, and they'd impeach him for it. So. Look, the war is...
Why didn't he go ahead and just do it? So you got 48 hours.
I wish he had.
I know why. Well, he did. Yeah, but he didn't. He blinked, didn't he?
Well, no, because
he did. Come on.
The allies in the region reached out to him, so they got together, and I think in
in other words, his ambitions were always unrealistic.
Yeah. I mean, like there is no appetite for regime change, right? Nobody wants boots on the ground. There's
60,000 American troops are there. They're going on. They're going in.
But there's scar tissue from Iraq and Afghanistan. So
but the boots are going on the ground.
There'll be special forces and there'll be
60,000
if they take that island. What's the name of the island?
Karg.
They will do that. I have complete confidence that they can.
Oh yeah, I agree with that.
But I would rather that they didn't have to, and that's the president's attitude as well. I mean, he'd rather do it the peaceful way.
The thing is, as they always say,
and you watch the 48-hour thing. Might still happen, right? I mean, we passed 48 hours.
It can't quite now because it's more than 48 hours.
But like he gave them a 2-week deadline, and he attacked in 10 days. And he did the same thing last year with Midnight Hammer. Gave him 10 days, and on day 8, went in. He's not going to telegraph everything, and I don't like it when he does.
But here's the deal, Greg. Everyone always knew. I mean, I read this from the outset. You want to unblock the Strait of Hormuz, or you want to control the Strait of Hormuz, there's only one way to do it. You can bomb like hell from the air until the cows come home, and you still will not take the Strait of Hormuz. There's only one way to do it, boots on the ground. That would explain why there's 60,000 American troops right now in the Middle East, right?
And I think you'll see, I mean, I don't want this, but I think you'll see U.S. Navy escorts with the tankers going through.
Yeah, but there's another problem to that aspect of the narrative, and that is this: that all of our navies, well, maybe not the British because it doesn't really exist,
no ships.
but your excellent navy and other proper navies, and we might even be able to get involved a little bit, could obviously escort the ships in convoys through the Straits of Hormuz, but that isn't the problem because the insurance companies will not insure the boats. So the shipping companies say, even if you escort us, we're not risking it. So, so they've got to actually get to the point where the Strait of Hormuz is normally navigable.
And look, the Houthis have been firing missiles for 5 years now. And we took care of that the old-fashioned way. And I think USDFC will provide the insurance or the reinsurance. So I think that can be solved, economically. But again, nobody wants to do all this. But if we have to open up the strait, as usual, the U.S. Navy is the guarantor of free seas or open seas. And so that might have to happen. And nobody wants that. But I'm quite confident that a bunch of fanatics firing missiles from, as you said, from these mountaintops, they'll ultimately lose. But I get it. The tankers won't want to sail and take that risk.
They've got to be properly freed. Just saying they will get military escorts through that won't work because the shipping companies won't risk it anyway.
Even with insurance.
And I think it's extremely significant that this time, about 10 days ago, there were 2,500 Marines in the Middle East. There are now 60,000. Something's about to happen.
It's a number.
I mean, I hope he gets on with it.
I mean, we all could have figured it out when the Lincoln and the Ford were sent to the Gulf. What do you think's going to happen? Well, I guess if you see 5,000, Marines sailing toward the Gulf. They're doing that for a reason.
There's 60,000. It's about to. Boots on the ground are coming. Last quick comment, Greg, if you don't mind. You've just been in the States. You just got back. I mean, we're reading that his MAGA following are not keen on all of this.
Total myth. I mean, there are some notable people like Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, but the MAGA base is 90% plus for the war. The average Republican polling is high 70s, around 80, and then the country club, the Republican Party MAGA is in the 50s. Okay. And I think that's just because they don't like Trump that much. But I think that, clearly the MAGA wing of the party is still fully on board. And it was the same, it's like a 30-point spread between MAGA and the traditional country club Republican. That was the same for Midnight Hammer, too. Yeah. So, and I was surprised at that. Honestly, I thought it would be the opposite. I thought the neocon country club Republicans, the John Boltons, would be gung-ho, and the MAGA people would say, we don't care about foreign wars. But I think that they understand that this wasn't just intervention in a foreign country. Americans have died at the hands of the mullahs, right? 600 men and women died during Iraq and Afghanistan, thanks to the regime. 2 soldiers died, late in 25. I think they were in Syria.
You've got a few
Jordan.
Dying now. We've, well, interesting times, Greg, and really good to see you.
Great to be back.
Greg Swenson there from the Republican Overseas Organisation. Do you reckon boots on the ground soon? I do. There's 60,000 Americans ready to do that. They don't need our help because our help would pretty much be non-existent. We're talking about sending a minesweeper to the Strait of Hormuz, but the Americans will unblock it. And it will be boots on the ground, in my view. What do you think, folks? 03444991000. Change of tack next. Sun Sport. What's in the pages of the Sun newspaper, on the back pages, I should say, about the wonderful world of sport tomorrow. That next. Stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Sean Custis, Director of Sport at The Sun, is in the studio. We're not going to talk about football because, Sean, something dramatic has happened in the world of snooker. Tell me.
Yeah, Barry Hearn, who basically runs snooker, called a big press conference today to announce that snooker was staying at the Crucible. And the Crucible is an iconic venue in sport, certainly in this country. And there had been a lot of questions about whether you could continue at the Crucible. Maybe Barry was playing a bit of a game to get some funding out of Sheffield City Council. They've got £45 million of funding to develop the Crucible. Currently, it only sits 980 people. They want to take the capacity up to 1,500. Pretty small for a major event, even then. It was 1,500. So they've signed an 18-year deal.
18 years?
18 years, which takes them through to 2045, with an option to continue for another 5 years. But while the development's going on, there will be a point during that whereby they move away from the Crucible for 2 years before returning. But me and you of a certain age, Kevin, grew up.
Yeah,
Snooker, it's hard to explain to people now, isn't it, that snooker was so big. I mean, it's still big, but it was on the front pages of papers we worked on.
Well, let's go through some of the names. So Ray Reardon, Dracula. John Virgo,
Steve
Davis, of course.
Dennis Taylor, the famous
Dennis
black ball.
Taylor, upside-down glasses.
I mean, you know, Bill Werbeneck. Who can forget Big Bill Werbeneck? He likes a pint or two.
He used to drink like 18 pints of lager.
Iconic figures who play Cliff Thorburn, all of these sort of characters. So Alex Higgins associated with playing.
These guys were superstars, weren't they?
Well, you probably wrote about some of them.
I did, lots of times.
They were massive figures. I mean, snooker players today are still quite big figures, but not like in our back in our day when we were working on the paper writing about them. Front page stories. Steve Davis was, I mean, huge. I mean, absolutely huge.
I travelled the country visiting scenes where Alex Higgins had misbehaved because he was like a tabloid journalist dream.
Absolutely, he was. And you couldn't fail to get a story, could you?
Every time, everywhere he went.
But for Barry Hearn, that was great because it put snooker on the front pages of national newspapers. Nowadays, we really only have Ronnie as the main. Ronnie O'Sullivan as the main figure, but back then huge. But it's continued on at the Crucible all the way through for a long time now, through to 2045, as I say. And I think Barry Hearn's played a brilliant game to make sure that happens. And snooker is still, even now, attracting plenty of eyeballs.
I was going to ask you about that. And by the way, the great thing about Alex Higgins is when you were caught up with him, you could always get the great story, the full interview. All you had to do was buy him a drink.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very true.
Yeah, I liked old Alex. Does it still get big audiences on the telly?
Yes, it still commands good audiences on terrestrial television. Not like the Black Ball final days, but it does. And also for us online, snooker still drives big traffic. Snooker is still on in the afternoons a lot. It's also on pay-per-view TV as well. It still gets an audience. Barry Hearn, of course, has done so much with darts. He does it with snooker as well. He knows how to generate an audience, and he knows how to get the personalities through, and he knows how to play the game, and he's played it brilliant with the Crucible here. And it's now, a lot of people will be very happy that it's secure as the World Championship venue for many years to come. But he was clever. He was suggesting he was even taking it to China and maybe Saudi Arabia and all of that. But I don't think he was ever going to do that, really.
No. I mean, the thing about the Crucible, of course, as you say, considering the global television coverage it commands, the actual arena is fairly small, less than 1,000 people, fewer than 1,000 people can get in. But it's a very televisual sport, isn't it?
It is that's very true. It is made for TV. It wasn't so good in black and white television days, but obviously
I remember that.
But in colour, it is. You're so right. It is made for TV, and it's also, if you're a spectator, a fairly intimate sport for you. You're right by the action. You're sat next to those players at the World Championship. Virtually, you can almost grab their cue as they pull the cue back. You're that close to the action.
Don't do that, folks, by the way.
And you feel very much part of it, which I think why they wanted to keep it at the Crucible, because they do recognise that the TV audience is probably the bigger thing, but for the people who go to the event itself, they wanted to keep them very closely connected to the action.
And who are the big stars? I mean, Ronnie O'Sullivan, credit to the family. He's the big name, isn't he?
Judd Trump, Mark Selby, Mark Allen, players like that. Quite a few Chinese players who've taken over because of the growth of the game in China. Yeah. But that, again, for Hearn, that makes it big around the world. If you've got the Chinese audience is huge, and he knows it. And even though you keep the World Championship in England, he knows he's going to get a massive TV audience still in China because there are a lot of good Chinese players now. Yeah. So it's a global game. It wasn't really a global game when we were growing up with it. It was pretty much British.
Yeah, no, it was, and it became a national obsession very, very quickly.
Yeah, just talking quickly of the national obsession, of course. Football is still on this week, Kevin.
Is it?
It is. But England players have been meeting up today That's at George's Park. We do play Uruguay on Friday, so there'll be a lot of build-up towards that. 2 friendlies to go before the World Cup. Uruguay Friday, Japan next Tuesday, as Thomas Tuchel bids to get his 35-man squad down to 23. So we've seen them all arriving today.
And you know what's good about the international break is the weekend before an international break, when your team wins, like Fulham did 3-1. It's not so good, is it, when your team
No,
loses?
it's not. No, thanks for that, Kevin. It's not. We've got to dwell on that for a little while now. And we're at the FA Cup, of course, so it's like 3 weeks to wait before you get back into league action. Yes, it's going to be a long and painful few weeks.
Yeah, I hate the international break when you just lost. It's quite nice when you've won.
Absolutely.
We're going to talk about the international break at some point. I think we have too many of them, we really do. But that's another issue. Sean Custis, great stuff. Director of Sport at The Sun. That's what's, well, there's will be all sorts of sports in your favourite newspaper tomorrow morning. Have a look at it. Thank you to Sean. We'll take some calls when we come back. 0344499 1000. See you in a minute.
The world is on fire. Russia, Iran, China, conflicts brewing in all of their different regions. They're not waiting. But here in Britain, our armed forces are underfunded, they're undermanned, and they're underprepared. And nobody in government wants to talk about it. Well, we do. I'm Philip Ingram, and I spent my career in the world of intelligence, military planning, strategic planning, and unfortunately, conflict. This is Talk War, and this is where we analyse the conflicts shaping our world.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Still with the Middle Eastern War, the war in Iran, or the war on Iran. Times columnist, Sunday Times columnist Matthew Said is in the studio. Hello, Matthew.
Hello, Kevin.
Well, I've just had Greg Swenson in the studio from the Republican Overseas Organisation here, banging the drum for the triumph of this military operation. And, you know, in many respects, you could certainly argue that it has achieved successes. You know, there's no doubt Iran as a military force in terms of its navy, army, air force, etc., is hugely denuded. As a country, it's hugely denuded, but the point is the regime is still in place, they are still firing off missiles, and there is this Strait of Hormuz problem. What Greg was rejecting to me, gamefully, was this. I said, well, the thing is, on Friday, President Trump's 48 hours, ultimatum. You open up that Strait of Hormuz or I'm going to bomb you off the face of the planet. I'm going to take your gas, your oil, your water, your infrastructure. I'm going to ruin you as a country. And they could do that. That is doable. And the response from the Iranians was, yeah, well, you do that and we'll block the Strait of Hormuz forever. Right, he's been told, row back. As the Mail said today, so that again, I'll get it the right way up this time, Trump blinks first. Right. He's blinked, hasn't he?
Well, I saw Greg leaving the studio. He was sweating. So you obviously you interrogated him well. Because whatever you think about Trump, whether you're a fan or you're not a fan, and I'm hoping everyone watching this, you and I, are severe critics of the Iranian regime, one of the most iniquitous and evil in history. Yeah. There's no doubt that we want to be allied with America. We think that its vision of the world is superior to that of Iran, whatever one's specific feeling about the current president. But it seems to me that it's almost impossible to dispute that, yes, there have been some upsides to this campaign, the degradation of the ballistic missile capacity. The enriched uranium, I don't think, has been found yet, Kevin, by the way. But the fact that this seems to have taken place without any planning, without any conception of what the end state would be. The objectives have been articulated in about half a dozen different ways by Trump, often in the same day. No attempt to build a coalition with NATO allies. No attempt to cultivate American public opinion. No attempt to get congressional approval. And what has happened is the unintended consequences, because Trump, I don't think, realised that the Iranian regime would survive the initial assault, which it has, and almost all the Iranian experts said it would, not least because 35,000 of its biggest critics were killed in the build-up to this conflict by the regime. It's a horrible regime. But then they've taken sanctions off Russian oil. So Russia is now profiting in a way that will sustain the war in Ukraine. For me, the biggest geopolitical issue of all, it's removed sanctions from Iranian oil. So Iran is now getting more money from its oil purchases, its oil sales, than the entire value of the Biden deal, if you remember that, Ken.
Yes, I do.
And you look at what it's done to the Western alliance, the division between America and the traditional allies that are so important. I tell you who I think is benefiting the most from it. I mean, this is a complicated question, but the fundamental battle in the world over the long term is obviously the West against China in this ever more cohesive autocratic axis. China at the moment is busily cultivating allies in the global south and more, positioning itself, even though it's a totalitarian state that has committed genocide, as a stable actor in the world with the unpredictability of Trump. So, massive fan of America, but I think you have to admit this president has acted without a plan, a strategy, and is now looking for an exit route, and it's not clear to me that he's got one.
I like Trump. I like the idea of Trump. I like his decisiveness. I like his anti-wokeism, etc., etc. And my impulse is always, particularly because it annoys so many people, to support him. But I'm having trouble. Well, I'm having trouble at the moment. I was saying to you off camera, 10 days ago there was something like 2,500 Marines in the Middle East. There are now 60,000 American land troops available in the Middle East. It seems to me pretty clear that they will be used to unblock the Strait of Hormuz. So therefore, because you can't do it unless you have boots on the ground, therefore, pretty soon now there's going to be American boots on the ground.
I agree with you to an extent on Trump. Closing the southern border, what happened under Biden was complete madness. And the fact that the Democrats became captured by an ideological clique, this huge woke overreach.
Yes.
I think that Trump in some ways is a symptom of what was going wrong with American politics. But one can think all of those things and still think this has been a strategic disaster, because the point that you make, Kevin, I think is cogent. There's only two ways, it seems to me, to get away from this. One is the regime falls and West, if you like, control the Strait of Hormuz. That will require troops on the ground. Think about what that means. American troops coming back in body bags, what that means for Trump's popularity, in addition to what it means in the short term. It could be a global economic calamity. And that, of course, will cost Trump in the midterm. I mean, Kevin, he positioned himself as a president of peace, not getting into forever wars in the Middle East.
Foreign wars.
Right?
America first. America first.
But the alternative is to get a negotiated settlement with the Iranian regime, and Trump has said that we're going to have 5 days to try and. But I think Iran, in a curious way, will be strengthened by this, because it now has a very clear indication that it has both the capacity to close the Strait of Hormuz and a much higher pain threshold for what that means. And now I think, given that we haven't found its enriched uranium, don't you think it has a very powerful incentive to rush to the nuclear bomb, which is really the only way to guarantee that it won't get attacked?
Well, when Trump backtracked on his 48-hour ultimatum, clearly told by the grown-ups in Washington, listen, if you take out Iran's infrastructure, if you ruin it as a country, which America could do at a stroke, it will respond by blocking the Strait of Hormuz forever. It'll sink ships in there, everything, and the whole world will collapse. The world economy will collapse. You better row back on this. So suddenly he's talking to someone from Iran who he can trust is now negotiating with him. I've given them another 5 days. I don't think that's true. I just think he had to buy himself another 5 days. He could not afford to go through with his threat. That means, as you suggest, Matthew, Iran is now controlling the narrative, and they bloody well know it, don't they?
I think they do, and I think you're right about that. The Iranian regime, by the way, denied that any negotiations had taken place. They're not keen to talk to Witkoff or Kushner, who are Trump's two principal negotiators. One other thing. It strikes me that what has happened here has kind of crystallised what was happening in Ukraine, this fundamental transformation in the nature of war. Back in the first Gulf War, or even the war in Iraq, precision missiles, expensive capabilities, and so on. Now, Iran can manufacture tens of thousands of relatively cheap drones, fire them at an enemy, and these very sophisticated Patriot missiles or other things to stop them cost 10, 20, 30 times as much to produce, and you can only produce them at very limited scale. So that if you decide you want to go after a relatively weak regime, you better have your eyes open for this fundamental asymmetry that I think is now very visible in the nature of war. I don't think Trump thought about that at all. Do you remember early on in this war he said, don't worry, we've got all the munitions we need. We've got all the munitions we need. They haven't got the munitions they need. These drones are so cheap, and taking them out in midair is not easy.
The most expensive of these drones, they're big ones, about 8 foot across or something. They cost less than a very cheap car.
Right.
And right. Meanwhile, they're being blasted out of the sky by incredibly expensive anti-missile missiles.
Right, and this is just another aspect of, Trump is a risk taker. There's no doubt about that. He took a risk with Maduro.
Yeah, and he's made the mistake, I think, of thinking he could do a similar thing with Iran.
Well, there's this ancient Greek concept, hubris. Yeah. Something works and works well. And imagine if you had the assets of the American military capability. American military is executing Trump's plan tactically. The problem is the strategy. But when you have all of those assets at your disposal, you have these generals, you have these thousands of extremely well-trained troops, you have this remarkable set of capabilities. You can imagine how easy it for somebody who has had a success with Maduro, who thinks that his tariffs are working, it's not entirely clear they are, overreaching.
Today, Venezuela, tomorrow the world. I think that's it. Listen, Matthew, we're out of time. Great to talk to you.
Pleasure.
Come in and see us again soon. Matthew Syed from The Times there. Next up, Simon Danjuk. Stick around.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's go through some of the big stories of the day. There's quite a few around with the excellent former Labour MP, now Reform UK, Simon Danjuk. Welcome to the show, Simon. Oh, you're not there yet, are you? We're going to take a call. Oh, are you there, Simon? Are you there? Hello?
I am indeed.
Yes. I was told you were going to be another 5 minutes, but you got here much quicker than I expected. So good to have you on the show. Thank you for joining us, Simon. Let me ask you first about Ed Miliband. He is doubling down on his net zero zealotry. He's a maniac for this stuff. At a time when I think a lot more pragmatism is required from all governments around the world, particularly ours. We've got the mother of all oil shortages about to hit us. The Strait of Hormuz is closed. 20% of the world's oil goes through that, and there's no sign of it opening soon, no matter what Donald Trump or anyone else wants to say. Therefore, that will soon start to hit us hard. Petrol prices will rocket. Our energy bills will go up. We need to use our own resources. We need to use North Sea oil and gas. We need to think about returning to fossil fuels. We need to think about fracking, because this nonsense that Ed Miliband spews about, oh, we're well on our way to being totally independent because we'll be fueled solely by windmills and solar panels, is for the birds. It's pure fantasy. It's just not true. This is very worrying. Our net zero secretary, I don't say this lightly, I just think he's a maniac. He should not have this job. He's a danger to this nation in these difficult, turbulent times, don't you think?
I completely agree with you, Kevin, and I have some history with Ed Miliband. I was a member of the Labour Party, a Labour MP from 2010 in Parliament. He was the leader, and I was one of his critics. I said he should stand down before the 2015 general election. I said that publicly, actually, at the time, because, as you had just said, I would describe him as a danger to this country, and I don't say that lightly. I don't say it about any other politician, actually, but I think he's a real danger. He's a fanatic, and I was amazed that actually Starmer brought him back into government, brought him into the shadow cabinet, and then into the cabinet when they won the general election. I think is a real major problem for the country, and it's at this time when the country's under threat. We're on a war footing almost, and yet he's doubling down on his policy of net zero, and there's just no call for it. The trade unions within the party, within the Labour Party, are coming out against him because of this.
Yeah, I mean, even in peacetime, this guy's cost potentially 200,000 jobs by closing down North Sea oil and gas. He is an absolute menace. And here he is. I'm going to play you a couple of clips now, Simon. This is him in 2024, September 2024, at the Labour conference. Frankly, in all his deranged lack of glory. Watch this.
Onshore wind, solar power, offshore wind, nuclear, tidal, hydrogen, carbon capture, an armoury of clean power, solar panels on your local school, your local housing estate, your community centre, turbines, batteries, thousands of projects across Britain, tackling fuel poverty, warmer homes, lower bills. Over 1 million families lifted out of fuel poverty. That is the difference the Labour government makes.
The bog-eyed certitude of a ranting lunatic. This was him this morning in the energy debate in the House of Commons, Simon.
Be clear clear with the House. He knows we will need gas for decades to come. Why does he prefer to import dirtier gas from abroad than use the gas that we have in the North Sea?
I don't, and we continue to use the North Sea, and ours is the pragmatic position. Is the lesson of this crisis a fossil fuels crisis to double down on fossil fuels, or is it to drive forward with clean energy? We believe clean homegrown power that we control is the answer.
Well, frankly, I know this is a heinous thing to say, but it's just lying. We buy shed loads of fracked energy from America. We don't frack because we like to virtue signal and say, oh, no, it could cause earthquakes, it's bad for the environment. But in that classic hypocritical way, we buy loads of fracked energy from America. He says that, we use our own oil and gas from the North Sea. Well, that's not strictly true, is it? Because we buy a lot from Norway. We are buying from Norway because they fully exploit their share of the North Sea oil and gas fields, and we don't. So his policies are just Alice in Wonderland nuts, aren't they?
Completely nuts. There's no doubt about that. And the other significant lie there was during his conference speech. He said lower bills, lower energy bills. Who in Britain has seen lower energy bills? A complete lie to the British public from before the general election to where we are today. Energy bills are going through the roof, and the problem lies with him as the Secretary of State for Energy. It's a complete disaster for the country. It really is. Buying dirty energy from all around the world because, as you say, he wants to virtue signal to everybody else out there. Again, I make the point, he is a danger to Britain. He really is.
And don't tell anyone, but when we buy all of our windmills, those massive windmills, and the solar panels that Ed is busy covering the entire country in, taking away agricultural land that should be producing food and covering them in panels. Don't know if you've taken a long train journey across Britain lately, but it's frightening the amount of the country that is now covered in these ugly panels, and then you've got these War of the Worlds big windmills whirling around. Well, they're all made in China. And how does China make these windmills and solar panels? It uses fossil fuels from its 1,100 fossil fuel coal power sources, power stations. So they're using old-fashioned fossil fuels to create these pretenses for us to pretend that we are being totally green, totally net zero. We're just not. It's just a sort of hypocritical disguise, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And what we should have been doing from some years ago is investing much more in nuclear, shouldn't we? But there were people within the Labour Party that were opposed to that as well. I was always pro-nuclear, and I certainly am now. And if we'd been investing in that, we would be in a much better place, as France is, than we are now. That's a really clean solution to this. But instead of having a balanced approach to this, continuing to drill in the North Sea, beginning to frack in the UK, which I certainly support, and at the same time trying to rebalance the agenda. I get that, we want to save the environment, but it's just the fanaticism of Ed Miliband that's creating real misery for hard-working people in their pocket.
And by the way, like everybody else, like all the green fanatics, Ed Miliband cannot scientifically prove to us that man-made emissions are affecting the environment in any way whatsoever. There's a fairly good consensus of informed opinion that believe that we are damaging the environment, but it hasn't been scientifically proved, and there are quite a few experts who say it has not affected the environment, man-made fossil fuels, etc. So that's another weird aspect to the evangelism to which Ed Miliband approaches this issue, and he drags us along for the ride, is he is basing everything on unproven science.
Yeah, absolutely. And the broader political point in this, Kevin, is that it's interesting. Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, gives Ed Miliband almost free rein in terms of policy and this extremist agenda. And I'm not sure why that is, but he obviously carries a lot of weight.
I think I know, Simon. I think you do too. It's this, and this is why he brought Ed Miliband into his cabinet in the first place, that Ed Miliband is by far and away the most popular Labour grandee among all the members. So keeping Ed Miliband on side for Keir Starmer means that all the lunatic left-wingers who still infest the party will, by extension, support Starmer because Ed Miliband tells them to. If he loses the support of Ed Miliband, he loses the Labour left and loses what little power he's got left. That's what it's all about. That's the dynamic.
I think that's interesting analysis, which I wouldn't disagree with, actually. That and you can see it was Ed Miliband, if you recall, that came out saying we should certainly not be taking any action in relation to the Iran situation. That was just a few weeks ago. But you're right. It seems to me like things are beginning to turn, though. Will Ed Miliband side with somebody like Angela Rayner or even Andy Burnham or something like that, because people are clearly positioning for after the May local elections. But Ed Miliband, for whatever reason, is a big hitter within the Labour Party. It's this far left North London elite that's governed the Labour Party for far too long, and we're living with the consequences of that.
Yeah, I mean, I could just imagine in those meetings, there was the National Security Council meeting, wasn't there, a couple of Fridays ago, where Ed Miliband, Rayner, oh no, Rayner wouldn't be in it, but Rachel Reeves, I mean, most of the cabinet members who are in the National Security Council all say, no, 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 you know, all we are saying is give peace a chance, no war, no war. You know, like a bunch of sixth formers, you know, just acting like silly revolutionary pacifists when the reality calls for some kind of action which we have not taken. It's a serious disgrace. Let's talk about anti-Semitism. Not far from where I live, in the early hours of yesterday morning, those 4 Jewish charity ambulances were firebombed. The police, mysteriously to my mind, still trying to work out whether or not that was a terrorist attack. I would say it does what it says on the tin. Of course it's a terrorist attack, but they're taking their time on that. In terms of the police and anti-Semitism, the problem we have, let me play to you. This is 9 days ago. This is at the Al-Quds Iran fan rally in central London last Sunday week. This is our friend from Bob Villan, Pascal Robinson Foster. Here he goes.
Death to the IDF!
Death to the IDF. Of course, he famously, notoriously chanted the same at Glastonbury. The BBC played it out to millions of viewers, kept him on air, and of course the hundreds of thousands of people at Glastonbury enjoyed his chant as well. The Avon and Somerset police, in terms of Glastonbury, took 6 months to decide that the crime threshold there had not been reached. Quite why it took them 6 months is anybody's guess. Now, 9 days after Bob Villan or Pascal Robinson Foster did the same chant, the Met Police are still deliberating. We asked them the day after, are you going to interview, are you going to investigate Pascal Robinson Foster for what seems to us like a definite Jew hate chant? And even if you want to say that the IDF isn't solely populated by Jewish people, isn't calling for the death of people a public order offence? Isn't that a call to violence? Why would you say, given it's on film and recorded, Simon, that 9 days on from the Al-Quds rally, the Met Police have still not decided whether or not a crime was committed? My point being, I think we have a problem in the police in terms of their reticence to pursue crimes of anti-Semitism when they see them.
Yeah, I think we have a double standard, don't we? We have 2 tiers in terms of policing around these types of issues, and that's what gives the British public so much concern. But politicians have some are culpable as well. You know, whilst there's an independence within the British police force, they're also governed by politicians. And you know, if the mayor of London, who oversees the police in London, was to make it clear to the commissioner of the Met Police that he wants a more robust approach to this sort of behaviour, then they would they would take that into consideration. If the Home Secretary came out and said we want the police in Britain to be more forceful in relation to this anti-Semitism, then they would take a lead from that. But we've had a failure. And as I put out on social media just a day or two ago, you know, this attack on these ambulances is, as you were pointing out, it's about intimidation, it's about creating fear amongst the Jewish community, quite deliberately so. And the government are culpable. They've let the hate protests go on. They've not policed these sorts of issues enough. Islamic extremists have been, you know, getting away with all sorts of issues in Britain, and they've not clamped down on it enough. And this is a consequence of it. There's no doubt about it. They're connected.
Yeah, I just think generally in this country, the problem we have is that people feel that anti-Semitism is a kind of form of racism that isn't as bad as the others. Do you remember Diane Abbott saying, oh, well, they're not black, therefore it's not really as bad as other forms of racism? Yes, it is. This happened yesterday on Good Morning Britain. Ed Balls, you probably know from your days as a Labour MP. He's a former Labour bigwig, grandee, still married to the Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper. I think he displayed here why it is that we have a problem with anti-Semitism. Listen to this question that he asked on Good Morning Britain yesterday to a guy called Dov Foreman. Dov's a British author, social media creator. His great-grandmother, Lily Ebbert, was a Holocaust survivor. He was in the vicinity of that firebomb attack on the ambulances. And here was Ed Balls, former Labour MP, now sometime TV presenter, interviewing him. Watch this.
And Dov, when you see last week the Shadow Justice Secretary Nick Timothy singling out the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, for praying in Trafalgar Square in a Muslim group and saying that is wrong and shouldn't happen, isn't that the kind of intolerance and divisiveness which is causing problems in the Jewish community right now? Do you condemn that as well?
What do you think, Simon, that criticism or discussion of the mass Muslim prayer session in Trafalgar Square has got to do with anti-Semitism, with Jewishness? Why did he ask that question? I mean, it was extraordinary. It was as if to say, well, you know, you lot were all criticising the Muslims last week, so what do you expect? This is your fault what's happened, isn't it? I mean, unbelievable, don't you think?
It's quite incredible, and from I've been following that story. Many significant commentators have come out and criticised Ed Balls over asking that question, quite rightly so. I mean, I cannot understand why he would ask that question and make a connection between some people discussing whether public prayer by the Muslim community should be accepted in the way it has, and then linking it directly to this, to all intents and purposes, terrorist attack. I mean, how can he think that linking the two issues is acceptable? And I don't believe, I could be wrong, but I don't believe he's even come out and apologised or explained what his thinking was around that.
He hasn't, he should, and so should ITV. It was a disgraceful question to ask. And I think, you know, so many of your former Labour friends, so many socialists, if you say we've got an anti-Semitism problem, within an instant, what about Islamophobia? You know, I don't want to talk about anti-Semitism. What about Islamophobia? Well, let me tell you, Islamic people are trying to kill Jews. There are not all of them, of course. There are Islamic people who want to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. Jewish people have no such intention to Muslims. There's the difference.
Yeah, exactly. And Sadiq Khan came out with something similar when commenting on the firebombing of these ambulances. He was saying that Muslim people are fearful. Well, we're not talking about the Muslim community. We're talking about a direct attack on the Jewish community. Can we focus on them for a little bit? They're under so much pressure. It must be exceptionally difficult to be Jewish in Britain at this moment in time. As some have said, it seems like the 1930s again. I mean, they would be so fearful. And I think Labour are obsessed with the Muslim vote, and we've seen it more since the Gorton and Denton by-election when they lost to the Greens in that parliamentary election, haven't we? Because they're fearful of losing the Muslim vote, and it's all about what can we do to get the Muslim vote and the far left vote back. And so they kowtow to the Muslim community, and that's what's underlying a lot of the issues that we've got now. Let them have the hate marches. Let them get away with saying what they want to say. We'll police them a bit more softly than we'll police others. And it's totally unacceptable.
Yeah, if Bob Villan, Pascal Robinson Foster stood on the stage at Glastonbury and then at the Al-Quds rally last Sunday week and shouted, "Death, death to the Muslim faith." Let me tell you, he'd be doing 10 years by now. But because it was about Jews, death, death to the IDF, the police have done the square root of sod all. They said they were investigating 9 days ago. It's on film. It's recorded. What's to investigate? Is that a crime or is it not? The police should tell us. But I think that feeds into the problem we've got. And as you say, you get Sadiq Khan and Keir Starmer, all the gang. You know, as soon as you say anti-Semitism, they go, what about Islamophobia? It's not equivalent. It's not an issue of that. It's wrong. It's totally wrong. Let's talk about the serious problem we have, and that is anti-Semitism. Really good to talk to you, Simon. Always a pleasure. Thanks for coming on the show. Simon Danczuk there, former Labour MP, now Reform UK. What do you think about what we were talking about? Ed Miliband. I mean, nobody. I mean, Simon used to work with him. Had problems with him in the past. He's always been mad. He's always been a zealot, but now he's a dangerous mad zealot. And we have a Prime Minister who is too scared to do anything about him because he's popular among the left wing of the Labour Party. What are we going to do about Ed? 03444991000. Now, next up, we're going to cover the biggest, most important story of the day. I mean it. Incredible footage on Loch Ness may point to the fact that Loch Ness monster, Nessie, actually exists. We'll talk to the guy who filmed it next. Stick around.
The world is on fire. Russia, Iran, China, conflicts brewing in all of their different regions. They're not waiting. But here in Britain, our armed forces are underfunded, they're undermanned, and they're underprepared. And nobody in government wants to talk about it. Well, we do. I'm Philip Ingram, and I spent my career in the world of intelligence, military planning, strategic planning, and unfortunately, conflict. This is Talk War, and this is where we analyse the conflicts shaping our world.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. We'll find out what's in the news pages of the Sun newspaper in just a little while with Assistant Head of News John Lucas. But first, the big story of the day, the Loch Ness Monster. Incredible footage has been shot of something whizzing through the loch up there in Scotland, through the water at incredible speed. If this was a creature, it was going at a speed unrecorded by animals ever before. Now, this was filmed on March the 1st, so what is that, 3 weeks ago or so, around about 6 p.m. And the guy who filmed it is going to join me now. And, well, here he is. This is, here we are with, Sasha Lake, 31-year-old Sasha Lake, who's a Nessie fan. Well, welcome to the show, Sasha.
Hi, Kevin. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for joining us. Well, first of all, before we get into the general details about the Loch Ness Monster, tell us about how you came to get this incredible footage. 6 p.m, sun going down, I'm assuming, 1st of March. How did you get it? What happened?
Well, I mean, to be honest, there's not really much to the story of how I got it, really. It's just, it was on the last day of my latest trip. And I always spend the last part of my trip just kind of taking in the sights. It's part of the reason I go. I love the place for a lot of reasons. So I was stood, I like to spend a lot, usually the last of my trip in Drumnadrochit, overlooking Urquhart Castle, one of my favorite spots. So I was just there at the end of my trip, ready to get my taxi to sort of head back home, or at least start the journey. And it was literally in the last moments of my view of the loch, that trip. It was right at the end of the trip. And,
so you're on the banks preparing to leave, but you've always got a weather eye out on the loch. You never know. Sure. And suddenly, what did you explain? What it was that you saw?
Well, something caught my eye, just kind of cutting through the water, I guess is the best way to kind of describe it. It's worth mentioning, I have a huge interest and passion in this subject as a whole, have done for many years. In recent years, I've done a lot of kind of sort of research into, I guess, kind of like natural phenomena, kind of things that could maybe explain potential sightings. I have just as much interest in that side of things. So I always spend a few seconds, if I think I've seen something, say, interesting or intriguing, out of the ordinary, I guess you could say, I spend a few seconds kind of just analyzing it, processing it, trying to think if it's something, I don't know, substantial, interesting, out of the ordinary. So I looked at it, I would say, for around 5 seconds before I kind of quickly decided to myself that this was what I was seeing was quite likely something outside of the bracket of the things I've been studying, I suppose, kind of explanations for things, natural phenomena, that kind of thing. I just had this feeling after a few seconds that this was not anything that I was familiar with, nothing that I'd seen myself with my own eyes, and I just went with my gut and I filmed it. And it was exciting. It was really cool.
So for how long did you see it? Did it eventually duck down below the surface of the water?
Well, it's hard to say what it did. So I saw it the clip, I think the original clip is around 25 seconds. Let's say, I reckon I saw that thing for at least maybe 5 seconds before I started filming. Right. So maybe all in all. So
about 30 seconds, half a minute, that kind of thing.
Yeah, around that. So to answer your second question, I've had discussions with Alan McKenna, who runs LNE, Loch Ness Exploration. Yeah. He's one of the first people I contacted with, or got in contact with, is what I meant to say, as well as Sean Sloggy, a friend of mine who I think you've previously kind of had a chat with. So it's, sorry, I've lost my train of thought.
So you've been doing this for a few years, Sasha. Is this your first serious sighting, personally?
Not about serious. I've had two experiences, what I would class as two interesting experiences. One in 2023, where I did catch, the best way to describe it is I caught a glimpse of something when I was leaving on the bus. I don't really know how to explain it, to be honest. I caught it looked like something, the back of something breaking the surface, maybe some kind of black mass hump, whatever you might call it. I've been meticulously kind of researching that, looking into it, trying to decide what I think it is, and so to answer your question, I've had two what I would class is, potentially interesting experiences. Obviously the first one I didn't get anything on film, no photos, no film, but this one, I managed to, I was able to film what I saw this time. Yeah.
And as you say, Alan McKenna, the leader of the Loch Ness Exploration Group, claims that he says that there's no animal that we know of in Loch Ness that can reach this speed. Did you get a kind of sense or a feeling or even a sight, Sasha, of how big this potential creature could have been?
It's a good question. No, and that is quite a hard question to answer, I think. Generally, no. I would, my personal feeling would be, I'm not an expert in specifically in judging this kind of thing, but my feeling would be, let's say I would judge, how far would that thing be away from me? Maybe just under a mile, maybe around 3/4 of a mile away. So my feeling would be, in order to be creating a disturbance that could be seen from that distance, my feeling would be, I would feel like it's maybe quite large, but how large? I don't feel like I'm in a place really to answer that.
So a mythical creature in Loch Ness has been a feature of Scottish folklore for centuries, but this gained worldwide attention in 1933 when a photo was snapped of what looked like some kind of creature, and ever since then the Loch Ness monster has been the stuff of our imagination. People are very intrigued by it. I'm not an obsessive, but I'm like yourself. I'm very intrigued by it. I think everybody is. Well, as someone who goes there a lot for the specific purposes of seeing if you can find Nessie, you clearly you believe there is some sort of creature in there. What kind of creature do you think it is?
So. I was waiting for the moment when someone might ask me this. It's quite a hard question to answer, because the truth is my feelings and opinions do evolve quite regularly. I don't know if I can tell you. There's a couple of theories I've heard that I'm kind of quite open to. So I would first start by saying, I don't want to upset anyone by saying this, but personally my feeling is I've never been too kind of I don't know how I feel about the whole theory of, a long-necked dinosaur, a plesiosaur. I don't.
Yeah, I see the plesiosaurus that never died and presumably a family has lived on since prehistoric times, and they've continued to proliferate. So that's one theory, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I love the theory. I think, as you said yourself, I think a lot of people, it would be great if that was the case. And I can't say it's not, of course, but I'm just saying. My general feelings towards it. I don't know what I think it is. I've had, in terms of animals, I'm not sure. It's more like I try to look at I try and narrow it down. I mean, this is part of the interest and the draw of this whole subject is I love the fact that you can just kind of research it, pick it apart, and potentially never really. It's like it's ongoing, you know, and it's really exciting. But so I try and narrow it down a little bit. I look at it and think, if there is something, let's go down the route. If we're talking something unknown, something undiscovered, I think quite clearly it breaks the surface or comes to the surface very infrequently, which I would say would probably, make it likely that this thing is maybe like a bottom dweller.
It's not a mammal. It's a fish or.
Sure, or something that isn't an air breather.
Exactly.
But it's a very hard question to answer. But I have a lot of potential, theories that certain things I've heard that maybe I think is a little bit more probable. For example, I know this may not be as exciting as a lot of people might hope to be the answer. But one of the best things personally I've heard as like a probable theory is something like a Wells catfish. Now, a Wells catfish can grow to quite large. Generally, it can, I think, live until possibly to like 80, 90 years old, which could potentially explain some, not all, but some of the sightings, from the 30s up until now.
Yeah.
I think that's if we're going down, there's so much to it, and it's quite hard to sort of actually get all my feelings and theories across in one kind of chat, really. But Wells catfish is just an example of something that I've heard.
It could be,
absolutely. I think, and
I've also heard, Sasha, that there's a certain kind of eel that, due to an anomaly, never stops growing, so it becomes very huge.
Unit eel theory, I think that's called.
The
like
eel theory. Where are you from, Sasha? Where are you from?
So I'm based in a little village just outside of Bath.
Okay. Yeah. And so you regularly go up to check out Loch Ness?
It depends what you class as regularly. I've been a handful of times in the last few years, maybe around 4 times. Yeah, okay. 4 or 5 times maybe.
Right.
So I mean, I fall in love with the place the more I go. I've made a lot of friends there now, connections, and it's just, aside from the mystery and that side of it, it's just.
Yeah, sure. So last question, Sasha. Overarchingly, you're in no doubt there's something in Loch Ness, something there?
The best answer I could give you is, at this stage, I would say I've never been more convinced that there is definitely something behind it. I wish I could give you more than that, but this is part of the fun. I mean, very kindly, Alan McKenna, that I mentioned to you, he's kind of he's welcomed me as part of his team, LNE. So I will be doing kind of research with him going forward, and basically that's the fun of it. I don't know what it is, but I wanna be a part of potentially finding out.
Yeah, I want to join now as well, but there's no doubt.
You're welcome.
I'll be up there on March the 1st, though, at 6 p.m. There's no doubt in your mind that you saw something of great interest.
I would definitely agree with that. Yes, absolutely.
Sasha, great little bit of footage, intriguing as ever, and really good to have you on the show. If you get any more evidence about what it was that you managed to film, don't hesitate to let us know. Good stuff. Thank you very much. Sasha Lake there, member of the Loch Ness exploration outfit, who, filmed this amazing footage. Like something cutting through Loch Ness, through the water at very high speed. He's no doubt it was a living creature. And if it was a living creature, it's nothing that's been recorded, because local experts say that was travelling at a speed that no creature they know about in Loch Ness could have gone so fast. So there you have it. Another sighting of Nessie. 0344 499 1000. Breaking news. Donald Trump has just told the media in the Oval Office that Iran has agreed to never have a nuclear weapon. He said they have agreed they'll never have a nuclear weapon, he told reporters. There you go. That's a problem solved. So Donald Trump has just told the media in the Oval Office that Iran has agreed never to have a nuclear weapon. That's good, isn't it? Right, let's go to break. When we come back, we'll talk to John Lucas, Assistant Head of News at The Sun newspaper, to find out what is in the pages of that publication tomorrow. That next. Don't go anywhere.
the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Phil from Essex sent me a text. So what I would like to know, Kev, he says, is who the hell voted for Ed Miliband to be their MP? Are they completely out of their minds? I don't think the good people of Ed's constituency are completely out of their minds at all. They made a mistake, clearly. It's Ed Miliband who's completely out of his mind. John Lucas, assistant head of news at The Sun, is in the studio. We're going to go through some of the good stories that are going to be in that paper tomorrow. And tonight, John, on Channel 5 is the drama about Huw Edwards, and it's based, interestingly, on the Sun's investigation into that guy. And we all remember how the great and the good all came out to criticise the brilliant Sun newspaper, saying, oh, leave poor old Huw Edwards alone, he's a brilliant news editor. Turned out to be a low-life paedophile.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, this was in July 2023. We were able to start publishing this investigation. We've been looking at him for a long time before that. And if you remember at the time, he was anonymous. And it was
you weren't allowed to say it at first.
Anonymous. What he'd been doing essentially was inappropriately messaging and paying a young man for messages and pictures and that sort of stuff. And we kept him anonymous, and in the end there was such a feeding frenzy around it. It was his wife that actually came out and outed him. And you're right, the Sun, we were absolutely hauled over the coals.
You were vilified for it.
Vilified, poor old Huw. And it turns out that we were right about everything we said about him, and ultimately the way this concluded was that police found child abuse images on the man's phone, and he went to court and was convicted of possession of that, and he got off very lightly, not going to prison.
Should have gone to jail, yeah.
An extraordinary story. I mean, she's now the US editor. Scarlett Howes was the lead reporter on that. We had the news desk had a lot of input into it. Ben O'Driscoll, the chap on the desk, was behind a lot of it. And he and Scarlett are both going to be played on the telly by various actors, which we're very interested in seeing. But the point is, Martin Clunes is playing Huw Edwards, and you may have seen this week Huw had put out this amazingly self-serving statement about the
I was just going to refer you to that. I mean, let's go through it. I read it earlier in the show, complaining that the production company that made this drama, starring Martin Clunes as Huw Edwards, made no attempt to check with me the truth of any aspect of their narrative before going ahead with the production. They belatedly asked me for a response after the drama had been made, while reserving the right to edit any such response. They also refused to disclose whether any of those making allegations have been paid for contributions. Channel 5's factual drama is hardly likely to convey the reality of what happened. And on he goes. He goes on about he's had mental health problems. To be fair, he says, that doesn't excuse my crime. My deep regret and remorse for the crimes I committed were expressed in court, blah, blah, blah. But he talks about this drama is hardly likely to reflect the truth. I tell you, what would reflect the truth much less would be his version of events.
Yeah, absolutely, and we know he made all sorts of threats and demands of this young man and his family when he knew that they were speaking to the Sun. Very, very unpleasant individual, and we've done lots and lots of reporting on him, and I'm sure we've got other stories as well. Which will come out eventually. That's on tonight. Downfall of Huw Edwards on Channel 5. Martin Clunes. The point is, Martin Clunes went on the telly and he said, well, look, he can complain about it. He was Britain's top newsreader. He would have been reporting on the downfall of other people. And what comes around goes around, he says. And
Martin Clunes said on Good Morning Britain yesterday that he did not believe it was too soon to make the show. By the way, it's called what's it called? Power, the where is it?
The downfall of Huw Edwards.
The downfall of Huw Edwards. And I agree with Martin Clunes, don't you? I mean, it's never too early to make a show like this. This is to warn us that these paedophiles move among us, and some of them can be incredibly manipulative, incredibly deceitful, and they can achieve great things like Huw Edwards.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, yeah, good. So that's on Channel 5 tonight. Let's move on. Drone busters crack British troops down 14 drones in their biggest nightly blitz of the Iran war. What's gone on there?
Yeah, right, so we don't really know what's going on with Iran. Trump's just been speaking, and he says there are peace negotiations going on. However, Jerome Starkey, our defence editor, had a great readout from the MOD today about this drone activity in Iraq, where we've got a base. We shot down 14 drones last night, so that's the biggest single night. In total, we've shot down 70, which, bear in mind, we haven't had any casualties that we're aware of, but it just goes to show the threat and the danger that our personnel are in that region as this conflict carries on. And you know, it is modern warfare, this drone stuff. It's absolutely amazing, the technology that goes into bringing them down and all the rest of it. Now, what we have heard this afternoon is Donald Trump has sent another 3,000 airborne personnel to the region, so they will join 5,000 US Marines who are already on their way there. You've got to think he's prepared to put them on the ground somewhere, probably not on mainland Iran, because they've got an army of like 600,000 troops, but
Karg Island,
it's this Karg Island.
Yeah. I mean, there's talk of there's as many as 50,000 American troops in the region now, and everybody knows the only way to open up the Strait of Hormuz, you have to put boots on the ground. So it does look as if America's preparing to do that, so stand by for big developments there, folks. Last story, John. Viral TikTok star, sorry, I'm not aware of him. His name is Ibiza Final Boss. That's his real name, though, is Jack Kay. He's been in his family's boozer and has been attacked by 4 masked men armed with weapons. What's gone on there?
Yeah, the Ibiza Final Boss. You know him if you see him. I guarantee you'll see that picture. So he shot to fame. I think it was last year, though maybe it was the year before. So he's got this bowl haircut. Looks like his mum's done it with a bowl, but it probably cost him a lot of money.
Oh, actually, he's beginning to see.
Chunky, big
he's
gold
coming
chain.
to me now.
He's got his sunglasses. He's got his black vest, and he just looked like the ultimate Ibiza lad. Yeah. And someone took a picture and put it on the internet and said that he's the final boss of Ibiza.
So he now calls himself Ibiza
Final Boss, and he went viral. And amazing, he got a 5-figure contract with Boohoo Man.
I got a picture of it.
He ended up being on 60 grand a day. He earned 800 grand in just 6 weeks after this footage went global, and he became, off the back of it all, well, I don't know if he became a millionaire, but he earned another 200 grand. But yeah, he's been in this very scary situation.
These 4 masked men who burst into his family's pub, do you think it was to do? Is the theory it was to do with him, or just it was coincidental?
We understand there were some threats at a family member's address.
Okay.
But there's a video going around of doorbell footage of these thugs making threats at the door. And then a couple of days later, obviously this is all under investigation, they've turned up and attacked Jack in the pub. So very scary situation for him. Obviously, goes to show.
Held him across the bar in front of stunned regulars.
Yeah.
Well, poor Jack.
Yeah.
The police are investigating on the case, but they haven't got these guys yet.
Not yet, no. It'll all be in the paper and online as well.
All right. So there you go. Ibiza Final Boss in the paper tomorrow, along with Drone Busters and, of course, the Huw Edwards drama. All in the Sun tomorrow, plus many other brilliant stories. Don't miss that paper. Thank you very much to Assistant Head of News, John Lucas. Next up, we'll take some of your calls. Peter Cardwell will be in fairly soon to tell you what he's got lined up for your entertainment from 7 until 10 p.m. All of that still to come. Stay where you are.
world is on fire. Russia, Iran, China, conflicts brewing in all of their different regions. They're not waiting. But here in Britain, our armed forces are underfunded, they're undermanned, and they're underprepared. And nobody in government wants to talk about it. Well, we do. I'm Philip Ingram, and I spent my career in the world of intelligence, military planning, strategic planning, and unfortunately, conflict. This is Talk War, and this is where we analyse the conflicts shaping our world.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Go to the phones in just a second. Special announcement. Our producer, Jodie McGuire, this is her last day, and she's off to a new job. So thank you very much, Jodie, for all your excellent help. This is a final day. We're all sobbing. Anyway, let's get back to the phones. That's that for Jodie. That's all you get. Let's talk to Ken in Cardiganshire. Hi, Ken.
Hi, Kev. How are you doing?
I'm all right. Yeah, net zero. What would you like to say, mate?
Well, what it is really, it's just I was just looking at RTE, and for a change, I really wish I was Irish. They've actually got their act together. They went into government this morning, into the Dáil, and they actually made a decision, and they've taken 22 cents off their duty, and they've reduced the price of the fuel, just like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, they can do that now. The question is how much longer can they keep that up? If we get the oil shortage that we fear, if the Strait of Hormuz really does completely break down and we lose all of that oil, the shortage that will come, it'll be beyond governments to do anything about it. It's a nice little gesture right now, but the question is how much longer can the Irish keep it up?
Yeah, but wouldn't it be a good gesture here as well?
Well, yeah, it might be, but we can't afford it. You know, and most countries can't afford this. This is not going to be a situation where mother government can help its people. We just can't. It'll be too bad. The whole situation is going to be too bad. So it's nice what the Irish has done. How much longer can they keep it up if this gets any worse? And as for the British government doing it, not a chance in hell.
I don't know. The other thought that crossed my mind is up in the Berwick-on-Tweed and around the borders up there. You know the name for all the bandits up there is Reavers, don't you?
Reavers. What does that mean?
Yeah. Well, it's what they call the bandits up on the border up there. I thought it was quite a.
Oh, what you mean in terms of fuel and that kind of stuff? Or?
Yeah, that sort of stuff. I mean, what?
Yeah, but I mean, Ken, what's about to hit us if the worst comes to the worst? You know, maybe they'll sort this problem out with the Strait of Hormuz, but if they don't, what is about to hit us will be the worst oil shortage in the history of the world. It will be off the scale what's going to happen. Petrol prices will absolutely rocket. Your energy bills will absolutely rocket. So Reavers, governments trying to help, be no good at all. Be just a drop in the ocean. We could be in trouble unless they reopen those straits.
Yeah, Reavers was just a play on words, just a play on a name.
Ken, good to talk to you, mate. Thanks for a good call. Ken in Cardiganshire. Let's go to Ian in Bridgend. You got lots of wind farms down there, have you, Ian?
That's right, Kevin. We're fully infested with them around here. I mean, in the last week, we've had 2 power cuts this afternoon, and we had 2 about a week ago.
Did you?
Yes. So it's the start of things to come, I think. Plus, as well, the Ford engine plant. Are we going to get a a massive, great big data centre in there, and we know how much electricity they use. So
it must be so frustrating for you to see all of these wind farms. It's frustrating for us all, and all these solar panels that Ed Miliband says are going to save our backsides. And what's happening? Power cuts and energy prices soaring. It's great, isn't it? Ian, got to move on, but thank you for an excellent call, Ian in Bridgend. And Peter Cardwell is in the studio.
Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm all right. What have you got lined up for us?
Well, very interesting what Trump's been saying in the last couple of minutes about Iran. We'll get into all of that after the news. We'll also talk about Shabana Mahmood admitting anti-Semitism is on the rise. Well, no massive shock there, but certainly something that is good to hear a government minister actually saying. We'll talk about that synagogue and what happened beforehand as well. Also, the Metropolitan Police apparently too busy to investigate the theft of Morgan McSweeney's phone, which had all his... very unfortunate that was stolen.
What a bit of bad luck, eh?
Yeah, shades of Wagatha